I don't even know.
Progress.
Thank you. Let me get. There it is. Thank you. We are starting our closed session for the Sequoia Union High School District Board meeting for February 14th, the Day of Love. And do we have any public comments?
I have no comment cards. I do not see any attendees on Zoom.
And I don't need to do a roll call, right? Okay. Well, we're done. Thank you all for coming, and we're going to go to closed session. We'll be back at 6. Let me get myself together. You are at, there's something echoing? Okay. This is the Sequoia Union High School District Board meeting of February 14th, 2024, the Day of Love. And so we're happy that you all are here. Let me get myself together. Where's my script? Here it is. So I want to welcome you all to our meeting. I hear some, does everybody have their sound down? Okay. All right. So I'm going to read something out loud to review our public protocol. Members of the public may submit written comments for the board in advance of the meeting via email at board@seq.org. All comments sent in advance of the meeting will be shared with the board prior to the meeting, but will not be read during the board meeting. Members of the public who wish to remotely provide comment during the meeting, use the raise your hand feature on Zoom. Speakers must raise their hand during agenda item and the public comment portion of the meeting. In order to comment on topics not included in the approved agenda, to speak about an item on the agenda in person, we'll fill out a speaker's card. It's right over here where the camera guy is. And you will fill that out and indicate the agenda item and hand the card to the executive assistant, which is right here, Laura. And when the requested agenda item comes before the board, the speaker will be called forward. So now we're going to go into roll call.
Student trustee Argawal,
Present.
student trustee Yuryev,
Here.
trustee Gen,
Here.
trustee Dubois.
Here.
Trustee Ku,
Here.
Vice President Nori.
Here.
President Stevenson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So we're going to get started with the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any comments or wish to pull any item from the agenda? It doesn't look like we do, colleagues. Okay. So may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. You got that, Laura? Aye, too. Okay. All right. So report out a closed session, and I have something to read. By a vote of 4-0 in favor of, hold up, how do I read this? Okay. Okay, gotcha. Y'all, this is my first time doing this. So by a vote of 4-0, board members in favor of case 11, the board approves the settlement agreement for case 2023-2024-11. And that should appear in the minutes. Do I need to note? Oh, yes, Amy wasn't here, so she wasn't able to be there for the vote. That's why it's 4-0. All right, by vote of 3. 3-2. Yeah, this is my training day.
I voted 3 members in favor and then none members.
Okay, so by a vote of 3 in favor, board members, trustee Ku, trustee Dubois, trustee Stevenson, and 1 against, trustee Ginn, and 1 abstain, trustee Nori. All right, the board approves the settlement agreement in case 2023-2024-12. And that should appear in the minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Oh, that was complicated. All right. So that's the report out of closed sessions. And we're going to turn it over to, I'm about to call you trustee Leach, but that is not right. You're so part of the team. Superintendent Leach.
It's been a while since I've been on this side and back at this podium. Let me just get set up real quick. Okay. Thank you, Mr. McGee, for attending. We'll hear more from the famous Willie McGee in a little bit. So I do have a special recognition. Preparing for this recognition was difficult as I was combing through notes and reflecting on the opportunities that I've received since I think beginning like last fall. I honestly could literally share with you all night the stories and experiences that a group of people have shared with me over a period of time. And so I feel it is important to say that because the allotted time truly does not do this group of people and their experience justice. So we call ourselves lifelong learners. So tonight I want to honor a great group of students. I'm still going to refer to you, Willie, as a student. And tonight we will call them Ravenswood alumni. Ravenswood High School was a high school in our district that closed in 1976. It was a traditional high school with all the academic programs, athletics, and extracurriculars. But I also have come to learn that the students who attended Ravenswood High School had something a little extra special. You will get a glimpse of what I'm referring to in just a few minutes. So what sparked my interest in Ravenswood? I have to thank Shawnee's and Carrie, who attended a breakfast with the Ravenswood alumni. And when I had a check-in with both of those trustees, they shared with me how delightful and positive a group of people were talking about their experiences that they had while attending high school in our district. And I wanted to know more. How their faces lit up, I wanted to have that same experience and meet with this group of people. And I have had a few opportunities now to meet with these fabulous people. The process that took place was initially 2 listening sessions, one in person, breakfast that we held in East Palo Alto, and then one on Zoom. As you can see shortly, the relationships were formed. And then I think probably my most proud moment was when I received a text message from Trustee Stevenson inviting me to the breakfast. It was so very, very special to me. Let's go ahead and play the video from the listening session.
The people from the school board seem to be open to really searching out for the truth. So even though they closed it, they never killed the spirit of it. That's why we can meet and talk with one another. I think information on why Ravenswood closed, I'm interested in finding some answers. I had been rumors, speculations as to why it closed. I think this brought a clear, gave them a better understanding of why. They can learn from the failure of closing Ravenswood, and the decisions of that nature have to be made in the future and help them make better decisions going forward. Future students that come from the East Palo Alto community, they'll be treated with a lot more respect and dignity and given the tools that they need to further their education.
With the history of learning from the past will make it better, because all that we had said, that would help them to do better and won't make the same mistake that they made with Ravenswood. And that's a good thing that they did do that, because before nobody listened to us or nothing, or heard our complaints or whatever. But that's good that they came out to do that, because all the stuff that Ravenswood went through shouldn't have had to happen. If we had a good school district that would have fought for Ravenswood. So this was a good idea to have, to find out why they closed Ravenswood.
But what I heard about, the involvement of people in the city and getting input from the students that lived the life that happened and why this closed and what can be done about it, there was some great ideas that went along. And so I think that, they're going to evaluate, like the coach says, now I'm going to watch the tape, I'm going to watch the tape. Why didn't we do this better? Well, I'll look the tape, and then, and today there's a tape. So they can refer back to that, and I think some great ideas can come out of that.
So we heard in that video, Jesse make a sports reference. And what wasn't able to be captured in that video was all of these sports stories that was shared during that time where Willie was there. He can contest to that, between Chester and it seemed like Chester and then Ray, with who you also saw in the video, Ella, who I hope she's online, was able to referee. There's just so many references and relationships and stories around athletics. And as I stated before, the extracurriculars and all of the project-based learning that they had at this school was just really pretty incredible to be able to have the opportunity to listen to them. So, I was thinking about this as I was preparing, and I'm like, okay, have I ever traveled back in time? So I want to take you with me. So I've provided a couple teasers to a few people on this next area that I thought was very special to honor our Ravenswood alumni. So I will pause because Ella has just entered the room. And Ray, I love this. Would you like to come sit up front? So fun fact, I wrote a couple fun facts from that breakfast. Some of the comments that I wrote about Ella Barnes. Would you like to raise your hand? Show everybody who you are. Thank you. Graduated in 1960. Went to MA for 2 years and then transferred over to Ravenswood. was a track star. We have a lot of athletes here. Mr. Ray Askew. I mean, from the sports stories that he had shared with his 49er coat on and his Warriors coat, I would think that he very well could have been a professional athlete, because my notes from there is leading running back in his time. And just how special of a place that it was, to hear him tell his stories of his football days. And so going back to the next video, which will be the clips, the slideshow. Before we play that, I need to give some thank yous accordingly to kind of set the stage for this. So first, he could not be with us tonight. He's sick. Mr. Tony Crapo, who I have been able to recruit into this special project that will go on and live far longer than tonight, has infiltrated their Facebook group and has been gathering memorabilia in order to kind of create a place where we could honor them, and then also share with the East Palo Alto Archives. So I do want to thank you, Tony. I know that you were online. One of the fabulous memorabilia that he was able to gather was from Ravenswood alumni. I believe it's Lovey Cheney. Does that name ring a bell? Class of 63. Was in the choir for 3 years while she attended Ravenswood. She sent us the sheet music that has been in her piano for over 60 years. And you know, at Sequoia, we do everything as a family affair, so Tony sent it to Genevieve Tapp. And then Ricardo Duarte did the recording and the sound mixing. So let's go ahead and play that video.
Sing of loyalty, our hearts will
Again, I just want to thank Genevieve Tapp and the Carmont High School Choir for recording the Ravenswood High School alma mater. And again, Ricardo Duarte for doing the recording and the sound mixing. So we will be keeping that and then also sharing that with the EPA archives. So I cannot go back and change the closure of but we can continue to honor you and hear your stories. And we will do that. Can you go ahead and play the next few videos?
And the thing that I loved about Ravenswood, even though in the 60s it was a time of great turmoil and chaos, the civil rights, the wars, the demonstrations, and everything else that was going on, but we lived in a little bubble, and we really had enjoyed our teenage years, even though all of that was going on around us, because there was just so much love from the community and from our fellow students. And the other good thing about that was the school was so integrated. We had all races, just about all races and nationalities there, even though it was a very small school, and that we all became friends. We all knew each other. And now, 60 years later, we still meet monthly for breakfast. We have yearly reunions and we have yearly picnics. So that just says a lot about the school that closed, I believe, in the 70s.
What's great about Ravenwood High School was that it prepared me for college entries, because as a junior and senior in that school, in my school, I should say, I participated in every activity that I was offered, and there was just unlimited things that you could do if you so desired. And I did that. It made me a stronger person at age 17. And I entered college, got my 4-year degree exactly at age 21. I met the love of my life. We married in 1966 on our semester break from college. We educated each other. I mean, we supported each other with our degrees. We gave birth to 3 beautiful children, 6 grandchildren, and my best friend for 57 years. And from what we learned and experienced at that school, we opened up a business which employed about 20 different families. It just prepared me for life. That's what I love about it. And Ravenswood, to this day, like today, we're having a breakfast. It's extended family. 57 years later, I'm still enjoying the same people that I was when I was 16 and 17 years old. That's a family unit that prepares you for life.
And to me, the things that I loved about Ravenswood, how we connected, we were like one big family. Each one helped each other. We supported our fellows, a football player, a basketball player. We were always there. We made everything worthwhile. Everything was important. People did great things. They moved on with their life, and they still continue to do great things and leave great legacies. Because there's nothing like a family, from people from all over, all races, that came together as one. And that's what I loved about Ravenswood High School.
I want one thing people to know about Ravenswood is that the races can successfully commingle and live together and be in harmony. And that's what we learned at Ravenswood.
Opportunity. There was unlimited opportunities to explore, and I explored all of them. I had a wonderful time, great time. It prepared me for real life. And I've lived it to the fullest, even to this day, at age 76.
I want people to know that a great school is only great when you have great people. And that's what we had. Wonderful, beautiful people. You couldn't find a better group of people in the school anywhere. And that's one thing I'll always remember. My children, their children. And I hope everyone that hears this video will realize that we were great people that did great things.
So the emotion just comes from like these happy tears and the experiences and the stories. And so it's just kind of like the rawness for me in the privilege to be able to honor you guys tonight. And so again, as I had stated earlier, we will continue to gather the memorabilia. By the end of summer, we hope to have a very nice display cabinet here that will be the home of the Ravenswood memorabilia. And then we will also be sending copies because like now that we have that, I don't want to actually share it. With the EPA archives. And you know, that breakfast this last week was just really the highlight to my week, to my day. The stories, the friendship still after 60 years is, I've never experienced anything like that, to the fact that alumni was bringing their family members and friends because it was such a cool place to be. We definitely took over that restaurant this morning. So again, I just thank you. I thank you. I see some very familiar names online, and I also want to extend my thank you as well. But I do hope that you will allow me to continue to honor you and to build this relationship. So thank you.
Would you all like to say anything? We wanted to, our dedication was the video, and of course, we'll get it out to the Facebook group with either anyone online or here want to say anything.
Did you prepare a few? Yeah.
Can you come to the mic, Mr. McKee? Take your time. The alumni group is really large, so just having a few comments would, it speaks for the whole group. Thank you, Mr. McKee.
Yes, I would like to let you know we appreciate the recognition and realize Ravenswood, you can't bring it back, but continue to recognize us and continue to get invited to the breakfast anytime you wish to come. And anything we can do to continue to assist you with the recognition, more than happy to do so.
Thank you so much. We have a couple people online that would like to say something. Would either one of you want to say anything right now? But you have like 2 minutes, Mr. Askew. Do you want to say anything? And then we'll go to the folks that are online.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody, for this celebration. This is something that wasn't expected at all, but I appreciate it. And I can say, about Ravenswood High, it was I moved around quite a bit. We moved to East Palo Alto, then we moved to San Jose, then we moved to downtown Palo Alto. So I went to, before I went to Ravenswood, so I went to a lot of schools. I had different mountains to climb at each school. Ravenswood, I kind of fell in like just one of the regulars. Nobody knew me, but I appreciate that, and I'd like to say that when you don't have a lot of money, like we didn't, so you have to kind of get in where you can fit in. Well, I got to Ravenswood, I fit in. And I just like to say, thank everybody, for just being there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Miss Ella, do you want to say anything or can I go to folks online? Go to folks online. All right, we're gonna go with Miss Dolores Farrell. Farrell, sorry.
Well, good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, all hail to the Trojan Nation. And I think what I want to say is I really, really appreciate what's going on here tonight. And I am a class of 1960, and I'm bringing you greetings from Clear Lake, California. And I am a part of the breakfast. I'm part of the other events. I'm still hanging out with my friends from 60 years ago. And so all I want to say to you guys is I think now you're honorary Trojans, and I appreciate it. I really appreciate this night and the recognition. And just thank you, Sequoia Union High School District. It's been a long time coming, and but it's all good. Thanks.
Thank you, Dolores. And now we'll go to ST. You have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
First of all, I want to give honor to God and to all of you for this opportunity to recognize Ravenswood. I'd also like to name the president of our Alumni Association, Martha Hanks. We've been giving scholarships for 29 years. We'll be celebrating to the students, graduating high school students in the East Palo Alto and Menlo Park, Valhaven area. What I really would like to share with all of you is that we need to continue to support our scholarship efforts. That is one way of Ravenswood spirit of contributing to the community. Long live the legacy. And our legacy lives by supporting our young people. So for me, I want to recognize all of you again for the recognition. My prayer is that it won't stop here, that it will be supported again with our scholarship fund. I am so appreciative of the blessing I had to graduate from Ravenswood, and I graduated in 1962. And the friendships, the relationships, words really cannot describe, because a blessing is from the heart. And that's my personal feelings about Ravenswood, that it was a heart God-sent blessing. And again, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you about our scholarship fund. And we have given over 100 students scholarships in our 29 years. So thank you again, and God bless you all.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Webster. We appreciate your words. And we're going to take the last person, Neil Bradley. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I'm so appreciative. I'm here with my husband, James Bradley, and we were class of 66 and class of 64 of Ravenswood. I think it's especially important that you are recognizing all of the wonderful things that our classes did, our school did, and what we represented in this great, Black History Month, February of this year. And that's so important. I really appreciate that. I thank you for remembering us. And I know that all of those who are here with us today and those who are not here with us are especially just thankful to be remembered. We accomplished so much. We had fun. We went to college. We achieved so much. And I'm hoping that in the future, we will continue to share, our life experiences and our successes with you. So thank you. I thank you very much. My husband and I, James, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, family. Bradley family, we certainly appreciate you online. There are a number of people who are online and just I won't name you name by name just in case I miss someone, but I know there are folks who are far away who are listening in and we appreciate you. And we appreciate all that you have done, the legacy that you have left. We're going to take a recess because a brief recess just to take a couple of pictures. Feel free to stay on. We got so much more of this agenda on here. It's exciting. It's exciting. So please stay on. But also feel free that if you want to go, you can too. So we're going to take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. 6:50. 6:50. Thank you. Letting us have a few minutes to acknowledge the Ravenswood alumni. There were a couple of tears there saying that they appreciate that. So I'm going to turn it back over to Crystal for the rest of her presentation for other folks as well who are special.
I tell you, just like a meeting full of recognition of a bunch of rock stars, and our next rock star who happens to be in the audience. All of the fabulous things I can say about her. I've had the privilege of knowing her for almost 5 years. She has been I was in the chamber meeting the other day, and just a little fun fact about before I say her name. Chamber meeting, and all of a sudden I saw an additional familiar face, and I said, "Oh, what is Melissa doing here?" And just obviously her overall commitment to education and to schools for her little ones who attend San Carlos. And she was, she was there presenting to the chamber. So she is just a fabulous addition to our district family. And I will allow her principal, Sean Priest, to say all of the fabulous things about our next recognition for Melissa Schmidt.
Thank you, Superintendent Leach. I don't have enough time to say all the fabulous things about Melissa, but I'll do my best to say what I can so that she can get to her dinner reservation for Valentine's Day at 7 p.m. It's, I couldn't help but notice in the slideshow, which was lovely and very moving, the extent to which the experience of the students of Ravenswood High School, like so many high school students, was defined by participation or enjoyment of athletics. I wrote about it in my PTSA newsletter this week, the way in which athletics serves as a connector between past, present, and future in a high school community, broadly defined. And I think we must be in a season of echoes awakening, because I've got my alumni association dusting and cleaning and updating our Hall of Fame in the hallway right now. So I told them on my way over that they need to make a spot for Coach Schmidt, because recently she was recognized by the National Federation of State High School Athletic Associations, as well as the California Interscholastic Federation, as the California Girls Soccer Coach of the Year. The magnitude of this honor is equivalent to, I think, being named a state Teacher of the Year. It's a really big deal, and we're so proud of everything that Coach Schmidt brings to her program. Truly a program of scholar athletes. I believe her team GPA is over 4.5. Her teams compete hard. They were winners of the first ever Sequoia High School CCS championship last year in girls soccer. They won their first Bay Division championship this last week, this season. I got to be a part of her recognition by the entire student body. for receiving this award on January 26th. I wasn't able to attend the CCS Board of Managers meeting where she was recognized by the Central Coast section for this honor. I'm very privileged tonight to be able to present her, but none of that or this compares to when I got to announce to her team that she was recognized for this award, and to hear their screams of joy and to see their tears and their hugs, and to just witness the bond that she maintains between her athletes and the program and the school. It was evident in every way why Melissa was named the California High School Coach of the Year. So congratulations, Melissa. Please come up.
So I just want to say thank you for taking the time to do this tonight. And I want to thank a few people. My family, my parents are watching online. My dad is my original coaching mentor. I still call him after every game. And my husband and my kids who are here, who understand what this means to me and have supported me through 17 years of coaching this team, and allow me to turn our family life upside down for 4 or 5 months out of the year, every year. I also want to thank Bonnie. Bonnie was there at the beginning, and she was a huge support to me as a new teacher and new coach. And then thank you to Sean for being a principal who understands what education-based athletics mean, and truly supports what I'm doing as a coach and what we're doing with our athletics program at Sequoia.
Oh, it works now.
Let me just go over here. Hello, okay. Having some microphone troubles, but we are back on. Thank you, Superintendent Leach. Congratulations to all those who were recognized today. We certainly appreciate the excellent work that you all are doing with coaching, as well as recognizing our past alumni. So now what we're going to do is open it up to public comment. And so let me talk a little bit about public comment. The Brown Act, upon any matter that has not been agendized, and this is non-agendized items, except under limited circumstances as permitted by law, it is the policy of the board to refer matters raised in the forum to staff or investigation and/or action where appropriate. Board policy ordinarily limits this time to be devoted to any single item for up to 10 minutes. Individual speakers are ordinarily limited to 3 minutes. If the board decides to expand the amount of time allocated to a particular agenda item, because many speakers wish to address the item, the board may reduce the time allotted to individual speakers to 2 minutes or to 1 minute as appropriate. in order to permit more speakers to comment. The board will announce the amount of time to be allocated and to each speaker before the public comment on each particular agenda item begins. We ask that all speakers keep within the time limit. So now what I'd like to do is open it up to public comment on non-agendized items. Laura, do we have any speaker cards?
I have not received any speaker cards.
Okay, do we have anyone online? I do not see anyone online. Oh, we have one. Miss Webster has raised her hand online. I'm sorry, it went away. So now it is Lauren. Is that correct, Lauren? Your hand is up? All right. This will be the last speaker. Lauren, you may speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, if you could speak up just a little bit.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Hello?
Hello, you can go ahead and speak, Lauren. Hello? Let's give her a couple of seconds. Yep. Lauren, okay. How do I do it? Lauren, you're able to, oh, sorry. Wrong one. Lauren, you're able to speak?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I just wanted to say I really appreciated the acknowledgements about Ravenswood and the videos and the experiences that we learned about. And I appreciate the connection to community. But what I would like to know is how we're going to take that information and those stories and use it to apply to the current situation. We've heard a lot recently about the trouble we're having recruiting and retaining Black teachers and staff and how unsafe people feel at schools. And I would just love to hear in the future what lessons were learned and how we're going to make the experiences for current teachers, staff, and students as amazing as the ones we heard about. Thank you.
Thank you for your board comment, and we're, due to it being an unagendized item, we're not able to comment at this time, but I have taken note of that, and so has the superintendent. Thank you so much. All right. Where are we at right now? Well, there hasn't been any Board of Trustee correspondence for us yet. And so our next thing on our agenda item is Board of Trustees and Superintendent and Committee reports. So I will go first and then we'll just go down the line. Does that feel comfortable? Okay. So I'm trying to write mine out so I can limit my time to myself. I'm limiting myself. So I just want to take this moment to just thank you all for our meeting today. It's been a month since we met, and I'm speaking to my colleagues. Last month was a tough meeting as our community was hurting, worried, and caring for their student, their child, their teacher, their school. Because it was a high emotion meeting, I wanted to highlight the intensity of the meeting. Really did bring cross-cultural communication. Because we don't talk behind doors, we have to do everything in public. I wanted to share that there was some courageous conversations that had happened. We had some unagendized items around ethnic studies and certain hurts that were out there around how curriculum was shared. But there was some courageous conversations that resulted in apology between two individuals who were having intense conversation. It was also someone who said boo in the crowd. which is not our typical behavior at our board meetings, apologize, saying, man, I apologize for that. And so, but I also received quite a bit of emails, um, not apologizing for feelings, but apologizing for how that experience could have been for us and our students. And so I wanted to share that because I think that highlights the caring community, that we can disagree without being disagreeable or hurting, or we can come back and have what we call at our school restorative conversations. I'm looking at Dr. Chacon. We practice a lot of restorative conversations, and I think it's important that we continue to have that. No system, no care, no person, no community member is perfect at what we do, but we can be humane and centered and person centered in our conversation. So I want to also just publicly thank um, those around me. I tend to lean in. I'm a social worker. I tend to lean into problems. And I am thankful to the team around me. And I would particularly want to call out, I remember Carrie saying, we want to listen. I'm like, okay. And everybody say yes. And that's a good sign of a board who wants to listen. I think there's other pieces when things got tough that what people didn't see, because I had a lot of comments about what was your board doing? I was like, they were helping, trust me, they were helping help us hold the room, hold the motions that were here. So I want to publicly thank Trustee Nori because we were like conferring back and forth. And at one point I said, I think I need you to facilitate while I take a break, or helping us hold the room and talking to Crystal as well, making sure that we were all safe while we still had high emotions, and we don't have to be afraid of emotions. And so I wanted to publicly thank both of you all for holding the space. Facilitating meeting is not a one-person show. It is a team approach. So I wanted to publicly thank you all. And I did receive messages from families in my area of a district area and outside of my district area that just said, thank you for allowing us to have the space. And my hope that we continue to listen to our community, for all of our community to heal. And I think the Ravenswood alumni group really expressed that as well. And we don't have to take how many years, 50 years to have restorative conversations and hold the space. We can do that in the moment. And so the other few things I want to talk about, and I know Trustee Dubois might want to speak about this, but we had our Ravenswood 2x2 with Ravenswood School District. They have built their new middle school. And they have come out with their draft of their student profile, and they were eager to house us and let us walk around campus. It was like being with family. Everybody was hugging each other. I was like, wow, this is great. But I want to acknowledge our superintendent, and I'm not doing this to just to acknowledge, but I give credit where credit is due, that we did have a bruised relationship with them probably in early 2020, early 2023. And things continue to happen over the last year that we've had to lean into some difficult conversations and meetings behind the door without the trustees there. And Crystal has taken the time to listen and lean in and have courageous conversation. And it resulted in one team. I felt like I was on one team yesterday. And I just appreciate that as a person who came on board representing that corridor of East Palo Alto, Bellhaven, portions of North Fair Oaks, that we didn't even have a 2x2 on the calendar. It wasn't even on the list. So to have it on the list, to having it feel like this is, they want to engage with us. And I think there were really authentic conversations. So I want to thank you for that. And then I went to staff PD, had lunch with folks. That was important for me because I know this room doesn't hold all the staff. Y'all beautiful and all. Abby, you so beautiful, but there's more staff than you. So, so I went out to the PD so I can actually see us in our breath and have lunch. And there are these beautiful cards that they created, which is why you all have received them, where they can just give some love back and forth and appreciation. And so I want to make sure I acknowledge that. I went to the community trust meeting in Menlo Park. It's not an assigned committee meeting for us, but I think it's important to bring it back. It's with our partner Menlo Park School District and all their partners. So Ravenswood is there, we're there, the police are there, the planning commission is there. Like, it's so many people. And I just want to say, we are all talking across Menlo Park School District about how do we continue to support our families with belonging, safety, and becoming one community. And so I just wanted to share that. Anyone can go to those meetings. It's more of a sharing and an organic place. But some of the things that we are experiencing, our families are experiencing, we're all concerned about because we really want all our community to feel belonging and safety. And it's in its broad sense, right? So I want to share that. The next thing is the San Mateo School Board Association. Carrie and I are on the board, and we're going to have a meeting on February 26th called Calming the Waters, managing board meetings, especially during some of our times of disruption or our times of high emotions. And so I invite you all to come. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but there is going to be a featured speaker there who's going to talk about not only the policies, but also tools where we can figure out how to listen. And I invite our superintendent, but also doing a piece around self-care, because that was evident after our last meeting that we needed some self-care after that meeting, everyone. So we're going to talk about that. And then the last thing is that I went to the Ethnic Studies mural, and Celine Cheen, which is one, Sheen, am I saying that? Chien, Chen? Thank you. Thank you for our reporter for always being here. MA Chronicle really does do a good job at recording our meetings. But how do you say her name again? Chen. And I quote her, "I hope this mural gives hope and encourages us on our diversity journey and our strength in diversity." And I was just really proud of her and proud of the work and how she talked about her teacher changed her life. And I was like, whoa. I said, now that's what education is about. I hear Sathik always talking about his great education. You're such a poster child for good education, man. That's all right. You can be one. But like to hear it from another student out there who talked about a teacher changed their life is really powerful. And so I continue to go out in the community, and we'll be going to quite a few things this week, including Redwood. I'll be speaking into their classroom. But I continue to be in awe of our district and really getting out to see all the sites. Trustee Nori. Oh.
Thank you. So, yeah, I'm happy to go next. So I also wanted to share on a couple of things. And I think firstly, I think Trustee or President Stevenson did a great job managing the meeting last time. And I know, there was a lot of intense emotion in the community, but I think a lot of that does come from a genuine sense of care and wanting to fight for what's right and ensure that everyone feels safe coming to our school district. So, yeah, it's been a while since our last meeting, but I had a chance to, some teachers invited me to visit some classes at MA, and I greatly enjoyed that. It's always fun to go back and see, what's changed, what stayed the same. And, one of the things I definitely want to bring this up in future agenda items, one of the things I noticed, and, to be fair, I was probably a violator of this myself, is the use of cell phones during classes skyrocketed after the pandemic. And I think I fully realized how much of a problem this is. And I can see how like it's hard for teachers when, when you can tell students aren't paying attention and how detrimental it is for the students themselves. So I think that's an issue that it might be good for us to look at, because I think I didn't fully realize the pervasivity of cell phone use during class. Another thing that I think most of our board or all of our board was there was we got to go to the San Mateo County School Boards Association meeting with Paul Bocanegra, who's a member of the Juvenile Justice Commission and advocates for incarcerated youth in San Mateo County. And it was inspirational to hear his story about, surviving the school to prison pipeline and his experience being sentenced to life without parole and how he kind of turned his life around in the process. So I greatly enjoyed that too. And I'm sure I'm missing more, but one last thing that I wanted to acknowledge is this week is actually the 50th anniversary of the Lau versus Nichols case, which actually involves our neighbors up north in San Francisco Unified. But what this case was about a group of Asian American students in 1974 who sued the school district, saying that English language learners have an equal right to education and a right to receive material in their native languages. So I wanted to acknowledge these group of Asian American students who, stood up and took a case all the way to Supreme Court to gain equal access to instruction. I think their legacy lives on in a lot of what we continue to do today with our English language learners.
What was the name of the case?
Lau versus Nichols.
Trustee Koo.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Trustee Nori, because I had read about that too. And I did want to wish everyone a happy Lunar New Year. Gong hei phát choi, gong xi phát zai, chúc mừng năm mới. And I wish I knew more languages because there's so many languages, but those are the only ones I know. But I want to wish everyone a happy Year of the Dragon, lots of good health, wealth, and happiness. Because wealth always has to be in there. And I also want to say thanks to the school district, in particular, having the support of Laura, Esmeralda, and Josue for enabling the API School Board Members Association to have their annual board retreat in the Mahogany Room here in the district office. Got a lot of feedback from everyone saying, this room is just perfect for what we need to do. And your district office is so beautiful. And so we were really effective leveraging all the whiteboards and the overhead projector. We had like Post-it notes everywhere. So we were able to align on priorities and have some key goals and activities for the year. So watch out for future events and member benefits. And then I went straight from that to the Sequoia WASC visit meeting. So it was very convenient. Just I didn't run, I drove. But it was actually funny because when I got there, there was all this hoopla about a bird that had gotten into the Sequoia Library, and everyone was trying to figure out how to get the bird out of the library. And so they had to call because they couldn't get the bird out of the building. And here I was just trying to take a picture of it because my son's a big birder, and I said, oh, hey, look, but the bird was way too fast. I could not get a good picture of it. But it was a very fruitful visit in terms of being able to share feedback about the school board and administration and its relationship to the school. And then, yeah, I had a chance to go to the dinner meeting as well. I was very inspired by Paul Bocanecara's story. And it really made me realize that we need to put ourselves in the shoes of students sometimes and really think through and have empathy for their experiences. And that's really what it meant to me, that, kids, again, kids are malleable, right? It's not something that if something happens that they should be punished for their whole life like that, because there's opportunities to turn things around at all stages of life. And then I also went to the Sequoia Adult School Community Advisory Meeting. And I love how Principal Roganova always makes it very interactive. So there were people from all different organizations in that room, and she had all of us working together in teams to come up with sample pathways for Sequoia Adult School students. And so we were walking around the room, talking to each other, putting stuff on the walls. It's just so interactive, and that's what's necessary for adult education, right? It's just not quite the same as for students. It's got to be to the point and very interactive. So I really appreciated that. And then lastly, just last week, we had a Redwood Shores Community Association annual meeting, and I wanted to thank folks for representing Sequoia. So Superintendent Leach and Principal Buckland was there, as well as myself and our PIO, Mr. Wilkie. So it was an opportunity every year. Leaders from San Mateo County, Redwood City, school districts and community organizations gather to give a little bit of an update, and then people in the community can walk from table to table to find out what's going on. And actually, you know, the school districts were not the highlight of the evening. I think most people were concerned about coyotes and how to stay safe when they run into one. There's a lot of concern about sea level rise because, as you know, most of Redwood Shores is below sea level, and they have levees. And then I think the other thing that people cared about was just kind of like the development stuff that was going on in the local communities. But, you know, my takeaway regarding school districts, because we were sitting right next to Belmont Redwood Shores School District, there was a lot of confusion around the fact that we have two school districts. Like everyone thought, wait, why? You mean the high school is not part of Belmont Redwood Shores? And so it took a lot of time explaining, yeah, this is how it's structured, and people were really confused. And I think there's an opportunity to increase awareness and just get people involved in the strategic plan survey and kind of involved in the community forum that we're going to have, because especially the middle school parents, they have no idea. Like, it's until they get to 8th grade and they start hearing information, oh, wait, there's another school district involved. They're not even thinking that there's an opportunity to chime in, right? So I think there's definitely more that we could do to make sure, especially our middle school parents, know that there's another school district involved. And that's it. Thank you.
Trustee Dubois. I'm worried our board comments take a long time. I just want to say I preferred it the way we used to do it, with board comments at the end of the meeting in case people wanted to leave. I worry that when we have at the beginning of the meeting, it really adds on it just adds on a lot more time, and I'm so concerned about people staying here so late. So I just wanted to say that again. So I will talk. I should just skip after saying that, but I'll try to talk really fast. I mostly want to bring your attention to some things that are coming up on the calendar that I think are great opportunities for board members to have authentic experiences with our kids. The Dreamers Conference is on March 9th. If you want information about that, send me an email. The OA conference is on March 23rd. I highly recommend it. Our students are on panels. They speak. You get to have lunch with them. I usually attend all day. I also had the privilege of co-chairing the San Mateo County School Boards Association Legislative Brunch. It was really, really good. We did a different format this time. Rather than having our legislators talk to us about what they're working on, they were interviewed by Joe Simidian, and he's a masterful moderator. One of the more sobering comments of the brunch, one of our legislators admitted that there really is no such thing as local control. It's a fallacy. And Joe said, and I feel that way sometimes, right? And Joe said, what a sobering remark to say to a room full of school board members. I was also at the Ethnic Studies mural unveiling. I thought that was amazing. And also, I really appreciated being asked by the County Office of Education to give feedback on the re-visioning of Gateway. So, and I think all of us were a part of that. That is it. Did I talk fast enough? There should be a 2-minute limit.
Trustee Ginn.
So a lot of people have mentioned things I participated in, but I'll highlight two. One was the strategic plan, what do you call it, steering committees?
The core planning.
Core planning team. Shanice and I were both here. For those who weren't here, it was in this room. There were 3 tables, each one with 5 or 6 people. The table I was at had a really good representative group. There's a district person who works in district office, a teacher from a school site, a newcomer parent, and a parent that's been in the district for a while. And so having a wide range of voices and interesting to discuss and walk through the different exercise that has to do that day. But just for those of you who weren't here to kind of picture how it went, it was a nice chance to talk to people and really hear different, very wide range of opinions, and the things that people care about are very wide ranging. So that was interesting. And then second, we'll talk about it more later, but Amy and I both participated on the budget committee talking to the bond team, who we'll be hearing from later tonight. So more on that later.
And I will turn it over to superintendent's comments.
I do have a few. So, it's been so long since our last meeting, so all the dates just kind of like lumped together. But I had the annual superintendent symposium where all the superintendents across the state meet in one location, which always makes me wonder, like when you're on the flight with the same people, you're like, what if something happens? But on the side, it was a great conference, being able to network with different districts and attend sessions, and definitely with the challenges and opportunities that present school districts, we are not alone in what we are facing. And then, although my flight was delayed, when I got back, I had the privilege of attending the Little Mermaid at Carlmont. And it just filled my bucket. Our students are so talented across all sides. And so I would definitely encourage you, when you have an opportunity, to go to one of our performing arts shows at any of our campuses, to definitely do that, because they are absolutely fabulous. And then I also wanted to share, since we are in the middle, towards the tail end of our strategic plan, the survey has been extended through March 1st. So we will again push that out to our feeders. I have shared it with the Educational Chamber of Commerce Committee, and we're going to do a last a push out to hopefully gather up additional feedback from staff, parents. The student one was done in class. The last time I checked, the school with the most responses was Woodside. So thank you to the Woodside staff and Woodside families for participating on the survey. But please, we have it on social media. We have the strategic plan on our website. You will find QR codes at the school sites as well throughout all of our campuses. So please, if you have not, feel free, also trustees, to pass the link for the survey around. So thank you all so much.
Great. And now we turn it over to our student trustees. Yes.
Thank you, Shanice. Jacob and I had our SAC meeting for this month yesterday, and we actually got through quite a lot of different topics during the discussion, but most specifically, the students at the meeting asked the board to aid counselors in being equally encouraging to students of all genders and races when pushing them to take higher level classes. We discussed specifically the lack of female students in AP and honor STEM classes like Java, Calculus BC, multivariable calculus, and physics, and just making sure that our messaging across the district is very considerate of the kind of encouragement we want counselors to be giving students. And then there was a second topic that I'll let Jacob address.
Great. Thank you, Zahara. And so the second topic was providing more informational material on A through G requirements and course selection each year and earlier on in high school. A lot of students across all school sites said that often messaging wasn't clear, and they would sign up for a class thinking that it satisfied certain requirements, and then halfway through find out that that class actually didn't satisfy those requirements. And so we're requesting all school sites to somehow make that information more accessible. And while they did recognize that they do have meetings with counselors and counselors come into classrooms, sometimes that information is still not clear. And also just in general about the Student Advisory Council meeting. We had, again, great turnout, and we're at a point where every 2 Student Advisory Council meetings altogether, we have representation from every single school site. Sometimes certain things fall through for certain school sites, but yesterday it was great to see every single school site except for one represented. And thank you so much specifically to East Palo Alto Academy for sending 3 students from there this time. And so that was great. And we keep on looking forward to trying to make all school sites there every single meeting. And yeah.
Can I add one more thing? We also yesterday at the meeting briefly discussed that at one school site specifically, I think it was Sequoia, the activities director was hand selecting students to be on the SAC, and we just wanted to remind everyone and, trustees, when you're at school sites, you can mention this as well, that the SAC is supposed to be open to all students, all grade levels, all school sites, and there's no prerequisites for attending meetings. So we just want to make sure that that's very consistent messaging across the sites.
And thank you, Shawnice, for consistently bringing us new leads and getting people that may not have heard about it. And we have been reaching out to them and getting them to join the Student Advisory Council.
I do make sure that they are Sequoia Union High School students. Thank you all. I actually just got an email, and I actually talked to a couple of kids in the community who've been actively involved in some of our meetings, and they didn't know about SAC. I went to it was a Youth of the Year with Boys and Girls Club, and there are a couple of folks on there who didn't know. And I just had someone email me, a parent, saying, how do I get involved? And how do I get my student or someone involved in SAC? They're asking me. So I'm not for sure where we have the information. I'm not for sure if you need your own page on the website. But I am advertising you all because I think your voices are important for us to hear from, and the diversity of voices. So thank you all for doing a wonderful job. I speak your praises wherever I go. So thank you. All right. Now it's time for our school district partners. Sequoia District Teachers Association, STDA, and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, ASME. But I don't believe ASME is in the room, so it's just STDA. There you go, Edith.
Thank you so much. So it's February, and as is characteristic at this time of year, I'm exhausted. But I was invigorated by some of the presentations we saw earlier this evening. I want to commend the district and the board for the work you've put into recognizing the history of Ravenswood High School. Many of you know that I come from a long line of educators, but you may not know that each of my parents worked at San Francisco high schools that have been closed. My father taught English for 13 years at JUG McAteer High School, which closed in 2002. And my mother pioneered family life education at Woodrow Wilson High School for 20 years, up until its closure in 1995. One thing that both of those schools shared with Ravenswood High School was that they served majority students of color. I know how the loss of that community and the stigma that the school's closure put on its students and alumni nearly broke my mother as an educator. After 27 years in this district, during which very little has ever been said about the schools that were closed nearly 50 years ago, I am so proud to know that we will finally recognize the history of Ravenswood alongside our other schools. I also echo all the wonderful things that were said about Melissa Schmidt, because she's amazing, obviously. In SDTA news, we've been working in committees with our members and district reps to make recommendations for upcoming bargaining proposals for athletics, coaches, activities advisors, and counselors, and happy week after National School Counselor Week. Our reps have been talking about ways that we can help support our newer BIPOC staff, and we hope to develop a proposal we can bring to the superintendent and her cabinet soon for consideration. I'm looking forward to attending the San Mateo County Office of Education's convening of the California Labor Management Initiative later this month, and to continue learning how we can continue to work as partners to create a strong and supportive workplace for our staff so that they in turn can create a welcoming and caring experience for our students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edith. Now we are now at the approval of the consent agenda. Is there anyone who wants to remove anything or have a comment on the consent for agenda topic? Okay. So I don't think I do public comment here, correct? I don't think.
Actually, I think I might have to abstain from 13.16. So
Okay, so we have to take that
yeah.
one out. Okay. So can we remove 13, which one? 13.16. 13.16?
There is a 1.6.
Yeah, it goes up to 1.7.
Yeah, so this is the approval of district-wide Google Workspace licenses.
So you want me to take that out? Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so we're gonna pull that one. Any others? May I have a motion to approve the consent for agenda except for 13.16?
So moved.
I'll second.
Did you nominate or did you second? Who did
I-
the fir-
yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, I'm gonna turn it over to Laura for roll call.
Student trustee Argwal,
Here. Yes, sorry.
student trustee Yuryev,
Yes.
trustee Ginn,
Yes.
trustee Dubois,
Yes.
trustee Nori,
Yes.
I'm sorry, trustee Ku,
Yes.
vice president Nori,
Yes.
president Stevenson.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. I think he has to name, so we're gonna do 13.16 and I'm gonna turn it over to trustee Nori.
Oh, I just have to abstain from this one, but
Do
yeah,
I think he has to state why he abstains, is that correct?
it's employment related.
It's employment related?
Okay.
I move approval of item 13.16.
A second?
And we have to do roll call for this one, correct? Okay, Laura?
Student trustee Argwal,
Yes.
student trustee Yuryev,
Yes.
trustee Ginn,
Yes.
trustee Dubois,
Yes.
trustee Ku,
Yes.
trustee Nori,
Not voting.
abstain. Vice President Stevenson.
Yes.
Motion passes 4 in favor and 1 abstain. Trustee Vice President Nori.
It's back on me. So now we will jump to information item and we'll start with Christine Gong to talk about the presentation of the financial audit. And I'm sure this will be exciting. So we're looking forward to your presentation.
Good evening. In closing out our fiscal year 22-23 is our annual audit, which is performed by our independent auditor, Siobhan and Associates. Tonight, we have Paul Pham via Zoom, who will be presenting a highlight of our audit and answer any clarifying questions the board may have. And later in the evening, we ask the board to approve the audit.
All right, great. Thank you, Christine. I appreciate that introduction. Thank you to the Board of Trustees and Superintendent Leach for inviting me out to share with you the results of the June 30th, 2023 audit. What I'd like to do is start out with just briefly going over some of the auditing standards that we adhere to in our audit. Then I'll cover some of the key financial highlights for the year. And then in the end, I will go over the audit results and open it up for any questions that you might have. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so hopefully you guys see the PDF of the audit report. Is that right? Okay. All right. So the as far as the auditing standards, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, they issue statements on auditing standards that we utilize in our audit. And because the district is a local government, the Government Accountability Office also issues government auditing standards that we adhere to in our audit. And when the district expends more than $750,000 in federal awards, they're subject to a single audit. And for this last year, your district expended way more than the threshold. And so we selected for our audit the ESSER program as well as the National School Lunch Program to test your federal awards. And then lastly, the education audit appeals, they every year they put out an audit guide that we utilize in our audits of your state programs. And this last year, there was a lot of new programs, as you guys are well aware of. So to start out, I'd like to take you to the MD&A. So on page 9 here, table 1, what you'll see here is that your net position increased by just over $56.5 million, taking the district from a deficit net position into a positive net position. So you guys are out of the hole, but I want to just kind of caution there that, you know, take it with a grain of salt. I'll go over some of these numbers here just to kind of explain these big changes that happened over the year. So the first thing I'd like to point out is that your current assets increased by $43.9 million. And a lot of this is going to be due to the one-time funding and as well as increases in your property taxes. And that led to almost $45 million increase in the current assets, which comprise mainly of the cash and accounts receivable related to these one-time funding. The other one I wanted to point out was this big increase in your liabilities. This is going to be related to the adjustments for GASB 68 for your pension plans, the PERS and STIRS. And then there's also this big decrease in the deferred inflows. So for those who were around last year, you saw a big decrease in your pension liability, and the reason for that is just market fluctuations. So whenever the contributions are made into your plan, your PERS and STIRS plan, those contributions get invested. And so if you remember back in history, the stock market from 2 years ago was really performed really well. There were huge returns on investments, and so because of the high returns, you saw a decrease in the net pension liability. And also, you know, from what we knew, that all those gains that happened 2 years ago went away that very next year. So we were expecting for the net pension liability to go right back up. And this is what we're seeing here, is that the net pension liability just returning to normal levels. And so really, that's just, like I said, due to fluctuations in the market. The deferred inflows, so the way the actuaries work is that they prepare these valuation reports, and in the process of preparing these reports, they make a lot of assumptions. One of the assumptions being the return on investment. So when they get that wrong, that difference between the expected versus the actual gets amortized over 5 years. And so that's what you're seeing in the deferred inflow of resources. So last year, you saw a big increase in the deferred inflows. This year, you're seeing a big decrease. So it offsets the liability. I'll explain that a little bit more in just 1 second, but let me take you to the table 2. And so I can point out here, the grants, the increase in the revenues I was talking about really came from these one-time operating grants. And then also the district this last year, if you remember, received a capital grant from the Proposition 51, that capital facilities grant. And so those two things, you see the big increase in your operating and capital grants, and then property taxes also increased. So overall, revenues were up, $57.6 million. So Again, a lot of these operating grants are one-time fund. The capital grants is also a one-time thing. So keep that in mind for future planning. And let me go to the debt schedule so I can show you the changes in the pension. So here you'll see that big increase, almost $60 million basically in your net pension liability right there. So really what you should take away from all that is what the district's required to make in terms of annual required contributions. And so the plans, they have a funding plan. So from a year-to-year budgeting perspective, that's what you should pay attention to. But overall, your funds you see went up, $42.5 million. The general fund in particular went up 18.8. Again, this is from the one-time funding, the surplus spending for the year. The school facilities grant, that's the reason here for this $15.8 million increase in the county school facilities fund. And then the rest of these are just mainly from increases in the property tax, like from the BRF fair. So what I want to kind of bring your attention to is the general fund here, the district's main operating fund, is that you'll see over the years, you've had surplus spending, surplus change in the fund balance here over the last 3 years, and you've got a really healthy reserve at 11.5 million for percent. But as you see in the budget column here for 24, and you guys are well aware since you guys just went through your first interim process, that you're budgeting for deficit spending. So what the management is doing properly right now is really planning for the future. They understand that a lot of this one-time funding is going away or has gone away, and that the fund balance is going to dwindle. So it's something to keep an eye on and adjust accordingly. Just because you're currently at a healthy fund reserve, and this last year you had an increase in your fund balance, it doesn't mean that will carry forward for much longer, right? Because of that. So it's hard to say what the future will bring, but keep that in mind. If there aren't any questions on the numbers, I can go into the audit results. Okay.
Do we have
So,
any questions? We don't have any questions. Okay. Yes.
Okay. All right. And then, so if I can reference you to page 85. So this is our schedule of finding and questioned costs. When it comes to the financial statements, we issued an unmodified opinion. So what that means is that the financial statements were fairly presented in all material respects. When it comes to your federal awards, the single audit that we performed, we didn't find any issues with that. However, with the state program, we did have a finding, which we issued here related to your instructional days. The district was short a day as far as what was required, the 180 that was required. Overall, we had no significant uncorrected adjustments, no difficulties during our audit, no disagreements with management. So overall, a good clean audit other than this finding. We want to thank Christine and her team and everyone at the district really who helped out. The audit is very comprehensive. It involves a lot of different departments. I know, and we understand it takes away from their day-to-day functions. So we want to thank them for supporting us through the audit. And with that, I will open it up for questions.
Oh, sorry. I forgot to do public comment. We have 10 minutes of public comment to see if any public has any comment, and then we'll turn it over to our board, if that's okay with you all, because I did forget public comment. Okay. So let me see. Are there any comments in the room? Cards? There's no one online, so I'm going to close it out and open it up to our board members. Do we have any board comments or questions? You're okay? Okay. Students, any questions? All right, so that's all. This was just an information item. Well, thank you. That was really great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go 14.2 presentation of the Sequoia High School WASC self-study and visiting committee reports. Do we have any public comments in the room?
I have no cards.
No comments online. Give you a couple of seconds. We don't have any comments. I turn it over to Bonnie Hanson.
All right, I'm only up here for a short time to introduce the man of the hour, Sean Priest. Edith told me that on the Monday of the WASC visit that started on Sunday, visiting WASC members were asking the question, this is such an amazing school. How do you do it? So high praise, or did I say that correctly? Yeah. So high praise early on. Congrats to Sean, and we look forward to hearing all of the great things going on at Sequoia High School.
Yes, go ahead.
I have a burning question, Bonnie. I asked a question people couldn't answer. Why did they do the WASC visits on a Sunday? Because I would think that's hard for not only educators, but for, others who want to be there.
I don't have a good answer to that question. I have no idea. The only thing I can figure is people on WASC committees are already missing 2 days of work. And so if they start on Sunday, I think they figure one, community members are not at work on Sundays. You're really supposed to kick off with hearing from the community first and welcoming the team. And I will tell you, having been on WASC committees, you return to your own job having eaten way too many calories and with a mountain of email. But other than that, I'm not sure about that response.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Bonnie. Go ahead.
So the purpose of my presentation, I think, is to try and set some context for the reports that you received with your packet. And I hope to do so by explaining a little bit about what it is that the Western Association of Schools and Colleges does, what accreditation means, and what the process entails for a school to be accredited. And I'll just sort of go through the timeline in order to do that, and then leave some time at the end for questions. First of all, thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk a little bit about the work that we've done here. And I really want to emphasize, before I say anything else, that I am here to give voice to our staff, our teachers, our counselors, our classified staff, because any positive energy that came out of our accreditation visit is a reflection of our staff, a whole heck of a lot more than it's a reflection of me. I've heard before many times the accreditation process that schools undergo through WASC being compared to eating your vegetables. And when Sequoia's WASC coordinator, Elisa Telesnik, who's been through many of these before, and I sat down in the fall of 2022 to start backwards mapping our process for the completion of the self-study. The idea that we talked about was to make the accreditation experience this time feel something more akin to a full course meal. So nourishing, fresh, locally sourced, textured, balanced, satisfying, sustaining. I can go on. I think most importantly, fun, as a meal should be. And I think the three most important ingredients to get us there are the same three ingredients that we try and come back to in terms of the culture that we want to create for staff, which is an emphasis on the three elements of high morale, which are purpose, autonomy, and mastery. Since our last self-study in 2018, we've worked really hard on the recommendation that the visiting team at that time left us, which is that we needed to do a better job of monitoring the effectiveness and impact of our school goals and our action plan. So for the previous 6 years through pandemics and changes and new ideas and innovations and broad awakenings, we've worked hard as a school to really sustain our efforts towards the progress on our action plan, really focus on the things that we set out to do, to leverage the engagement and dedication of our staff and community members who form the shared decision-making infrastructure, which regularly evaluates and updates that action plan. And of course, the school board and the trustees, through your annual review of our SPSA, are a part of that as well. In January of 2023, we officially kicked off staff-wide our accreditation self-study with a data buffet with a big assist from our curriculum team, coaches, and our data team. We were able to assemble a plethora of data, which we then distributed through cross-curricular teams in our MPR, and gave folks a chance to dive in using an analysis protocol and assess the growth in our targeted critical areas of need. Folks looked at demographic, perception, and academic performance data. We looked at our vision, we looked at our mission. We asked ourselves the same questions that I regularly ask any group that will give me a microphone to talk to, which is, do we believe that that every student wants to be successful in the things that they set out to learn? Do we believe that failure is an essential element of that learning process? And do we believe that there are obstacles or circumstances outside of the control of our students that impede them from being successful as learners? And as we answer those three questions affirmatively, we have to think about what the implications are for what we do as a school. And when we think about those implications, we can start to have a conversation about our vision and our mission as a community, and then we can begin to align the work that we do, our practice, with the values that emerge from that conversation. And then that's not something that you do every 6 years. That's not something that you do just with your leadership team. That's not something that you do just with your staff. Those are questions that I like to ask, like I said, just about any group that will give me a microphone. So you'll hear me ask those questions and connect them with our values when I talk to stakeholder groups, such as our 9th grade parents on orientation day, our PTSA, our ELAC, et cetera, et cetera. But those are questions that we come back to again and again as we recommit to our values as a community. The next phase in the WASC process was to take what we learned through the student data analysis and that affirmation and articulation of our values and begin identifying areas that we want to address as a school. We generated lists using an inclusive and equitable process to prioritize and try and narrow the focus of the many, 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 many ideas that our staff generated about what ways we might improve our school. We tried to frame this conversation around the idea of, as a school, we do things well. What are those things that we do well? What assets can we leverage? As a school, there are things that we need to improve, as all schools do. And what are the things that we want to focus on and improving? And then taking that information and thinking about who we want to be in 6 years. So as we do our self-study in 2024, where do we want to be in 2030? And that frame really drives what happens over the next few months. So through spring 2023 and fall 2023, our staff divided into focus groups. These areas correspond with the WASC focus group areas: organization, curriculum, learning and teaching, assessment, and school culture. These are areas that are defined by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges in their accreditation. These are the same areas that the visiting team is going to look at. This is how the report is structured. And our focus groups then inventory and organize evidence that they bring to those meetings in their roles. So a focus group is going to include teachers and counselors and classified staff, including custodians and campus aides. And they're going to talk about the things that they do, maybe in their departments or in their curricular teams, which contribute to progress in each of those areas. Evidence is gathered, and then the culminating activity of those focus groups, after giving themselves an assessment based on the criteria that are laid out by WASC, is to develop and articulate areas of strength and areas of growth within each of those areas. Later, those Bullet points get delivered to the site council and our school leadership team, which met again in fall 2023 to really look at aggregated areas of strength and growth that were recommended by the focus groups. We again used an equitable and inclusive process. This one is called Spend a Dot. I'm sure you're all familiar with it, to promote areas which should be the focus of our school-wide action plan moving forward. Once we prioritize the areas of strength and growth, which you can find on page 51 of the report, those then were analyzed by a third ad hoc committee of staff leaders, which we put together just to get another set of eyes and minds. We called this group the Wasketeers. It included head counselors. It included some critical folks that are school leaders, but maybe not serving in a formal way on our school-wide governance apparatus. From that conversation, an action plan draft began to unspool. And this is the basis of the action plan that was submitted as part of the WASC report and is linked to at the end of the report in a soft copy. This is the plan then to guide us for the next 6 years. Remember I talked about having fun? Are we having fun yet? I know I am. On December 15th, we submitted our final written report, self-study, to the WASC office, which was then distributed to members of the visiting committee. I have to, at this point, recognize, I mentioned Elisa Telesnik earlier. She's a gifted writer, and I think her gift in this particular context is to provide an authentic voice to a very broad collective. The WASC report reads very, very well, and it is one voice, but it represents a very broad collective of stakeholders who participated in gathering all the information needed to complete the self-study, the prompts, the evidence, et cetera, et cetera. At this point, we waited a week prior to the meeting. Veteran administrators from our district, Gabe Buckland Murray, Victoria Dye, Simone Rick Kennel, Kimberly Zillis, and Karen Van Putten were generous enough to come facilitate practice focus group meetings with the staff. So again, folks gathered in the groups that they had been working with in the fall and in the spring to simulate the conversations that they would have once the visiting committee arrived. On Sunday, January 28th, with rain clouds overhead and the NFC Championship in the backdrop, 6 members of the visiting committee arrived on our campus. And they met first with our site council and school leadership team, which included parents and students. Then trustees Koo and Stevenson, thank you, were there with Associate Superintendent Hansen and Assistant Superintendent Dr. Chacon. They also met with 2 parent groups for conversations in English and another in Spanish. I think having done a number of these visits over the year, just to answer your question, Trustee Dubois, it really is a lot to do in a very truncated period of time. So that Sunday is kind of essential. It's the only way you can get through all that stuff. And actually the visiting teams, they meet before they even go to the school usually, and then they meet again after that sort of 5-hour barrage of conversations that they have to kick off the meeting. The following morning, the visiting team starts visiting classrooms. Their job is to get into every classroom at least once. They speak with each of the focus groups that I talked about earlier. They met with our counseling and intervention team. We put together a representative group of students. The job of the visiting team is to compare what we put in our self-study report with what they see and hear on the ground. The idea, when done right, is that this visit validates the findings of the self-study. It assesses the effectiveness of the school, and it uses the same 19 criteria that our focus groups looked at over the previous spring and fall to make that assessment. Sequoia is not a perfect school. We have an ambitious staff. We're also really hard on ourselves. And I've been on the receiving end of 6 accreditations in my career at the schools that I've worked at as a teacher, as a vice principal, as a principal. I've led or participated in visiting teams at 6 schools. I'll be going to my 7th in April in Lodi. This is the first time on any of those visits on either side that the following 2 things have happened. Number 1, the visiting committee offered no recommendations for areas of growth. They were satisfied with the ones that we as a staff had identified in our process of self-study. I've never seen that before. Usually they give you something else to add and recommend some sort of a change to the action plan. That did not happen this time. In fact, the conversation that we had with them early on Wednesday morning as they were preparing their final report was, did we want to take one of our action items out? Because they felt that what we had put together was pretty ambitious. And maybe it would be worth considering taking one out. And both Elisa and I looked at each other and took a deep breath and then looked again at the action items. And with each of them, we knew that they represented such an in-depth process and really things that had been identified through multiple groups as such high priority areas for us to consider. There was just no way we could think of anything that would be possible to take out. Likewise, of the 19 criteria under assessment, this is again something I've never seen before. Sequoia was found by the visiting team to be effective in 11 of the 19 areas and highly effective in 8. So we didn't get a somewhat effective or an ineffective in anything. And like I said before, I have been to several schools and I've been on several ones. There's usually at least something where you're somewhat effective and you're scratching your head going, darn it, somewhat effective is not effective or highly effective. So we felt really good about that validation. Again, this is not to say everything is perfect. This is to say that the process that we use seemed to have worked in so much as we had identified it in a way that could be validated by an objective visiting team as the right things that we should be focused on. The report that the visiting committee wrote, which you also have, that's the report in purple. That will go to the WASC Commission the next time the commission meets, which I believe is in March. At that point, the term of accreditation will be determined, and we should know by April what that looks like. Typically, it's a 6-year term of accreditation. The question is what will be in the middle. Will we have a written report at the 3-year point? Will we have a 1-day visit, a 2-day visit? We'll see. Like I said before, I think the positive outcomes of the WASC visit are not an indicator that we are a perfect school. They do indicate, I think, how strong our staff is, how smart and dedicated and hardworking and honest and authentic our staff is, how the task of validating something as in-depth as a WASC report in a very short period of time requires, I think, a lot of people to really know what they're talking about. And there's not a lot of time to do it. And so having those 50, 60-minute focus group meetings, meeting with those counselors, getting into classrooms and being able to see, yeah, the stuff that we read about in the report really does happen, is, I think, a testament to how in tune our staff is with our action plan, with our areas of growth, with what we do, and also with what we do well, and addressing the challenges that we have as a school community. The report from like I said before, the report from the committee will go to the WASC Commission. We should know by April what our accreditation term is. And then for us, the work goes on. So we are eager to get back into what we've been doing for the last 6 years, which is, I think, working with an action plan. It's a living document. It's something that we revisit every month in our site council SLT. Our vision of the school where there's authentic efforts to make sure that there's equity in access and there's equity in outcomes. In other words, students are really given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity through creativity, compassion, and joy to find their best selves in what they do at Sequoia continues to exist. For me, I really enjoy graduation day. For those of you who've been there with me, I think you know how kind of giddy I am. It's awarding diplomas, right? It's a really simple task. I'm handing out a piece of paper. And I've found over the last few years in complex times to really focus on this very essential part of what it is that we do. We give out diplomas. That's why we all come to school every day. We're trying to get kids high school diplomas. And everyone in our community, teachers, families, students, they do a lot of stuff. They wear a lot of hats, but at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do, is get kids diplomas, opportunities, and the other things that carries. So what does that diploma carry? That's what the process of accreditation is really about. It gives the diploma meaning. And I enjoy having conversations with students and family about the meaning of their diplomas. I talk with kids about it all the time. Yes, it's just a piece of paper, but what does it really represent? Who decides? Well, this is part of what WASC is. We are grateful for our WASC visiting team for the time that they took to really carefully study our self-study report. It was dense with school data, goals, strengths, action items, evidence. The report, I think, effectively synthesizes what we do, what challenges us, where we want to be in 6 years. After over a year of analysis, input, dialogue, we were very proud of what we put forward, and we're very satisfied that the visiting team saw that. I think for the process to have meaning, we have to be our own harshest critics. And again, that goes back to this idea of mastery, autonomy, and purpose in the work that we do. Conversations that I was a part of were lively, they were intelligent. I hope that you felt the same in your participation. It's a really exciting reminder every 6 years of what dedicated, collaborative, and thoughtful people that we all get to work with, particularly my experience at Sequoia. We make a promise through the accreditation process to our Sequoia community that we are a school where the best and brightest young people in one of the most dynamic communities in America get to launch themselves into meaningful young adult lives. And we live up to that promise through the integrity with which we approach our work, particularly the integrity through which we approach the process of accreditation and self-study. And sometimes my colleagues laugh at how much I enjoy the WASC process. It's kind of a joke among the school staff. I don't treat it as a chore. I don't treat it as a nuisance. I really do find joy in the experience because I connect it very closely with the names of graduates that are read on Tiramir Field and how that all stems from the promise that we make about what a Sequoia diploma stands for through the WASC process. So I do see it as a true privilege to be able to work with such an incredible community, and I appreciate you all for being a part of that. I appreciate very much the district staff for their support of our work in our accreditation and in pushing forward with our action plan and school mission. And if there are any questions at this time, I'm happy to take them as pertaining to the report itself or the action plan.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Principal Priest. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues. Does anyone have any questions? I'll start with the student trustees, comments or questions? No? Okay. Starting with my colleagues, is there anyone that has any questions or comments? Yes, Dubois.
Just one. So when you mentioned that some of our students have circumstances that, I can't remember your exact quote, that impedes, outside circumstances that impedes learning. And that's the thing that I'm constantly thinking about. And you're there on the ground, right? And you see it every day. I know there's no silver bullet, but what has helped the most, or what have you seen? And because I know that there's the mental health support, but anything else, just from your wisdom and your experience?
Well, I would, first of all, I'm reluctant to tell a single story about a group of students because my experience has been that every student's circumstances are unique. Likewise, every student's ability to confront those circumstances is unique. And just as often as I've seen a student whose the circumstances beyond their control does become overwhelming, I've seen 2 or 3 students who are able to, through their own strength of character, or through the support of their community, family, teachers, overcome those circumstances and be successful. So I draw inspiration from that, and I try and look through the lens of assets as opposed to thinking solely in terms of deficits. That being said, I think there are things that we can do strategically to make to find the balance, I think, in school between what does it look like to have healthy sources of motivation, when is competition a good thing, when can we push students, and when do we need to be nurturing and supportive, and what are some things that we can be intelligent about in terms of the environment that we create for students, and how do we think about that really over a 4-year continuum? I think that's something that we really try and think about. What is the, not what does this semester or this year look like for a kid or for all of our kids, but what is the 4-year experience? How do things culminate? Where are we going over the course of 4 years at Sequoia? We also, I think we try and listen as much as possible, and we have amazing teachers who are so relationship focused and so asset focused. It makes it very, very easy to, I think, to reach out to families and try and offer support through whether it's our Teen Resource Center, whether it's our Family Center, any, you know, relationship that we have with our community, with our families is a reflection of those, you know, relationships that are developed by the teachers and by the staff and by the counselors, certificated, classified as well. There's just those are the relationships that matter, coaches. Those are the relationships that matter because we have such a, I think, a strong reputation and so many positive people that really helps a lot. And then you can start to personalize. And then you can figure out, okay, what is it that you need and what do we have at our within reach that can help you with that.
Thank you so much, Rich.
So just sort of as a general comment, I think it also applies to the presentation heard before about the audit. Sometimes, you know, in a school district, there's thousands of students, hundreds of employees, dozens of administrators, and all these interactions between everybody every day. And so much goes so well. There's always some things that we're, as a board, looking at the little areas where we see for improvement. But we just heard a clean audit with, you know, no findings. And then we hear a WASC report where you guys had identified all of the, you know, you have a long list of good things to work on. As you said, there's always something to work on, but just recognizing two processes that we just heard about that from a board's perspective is very comforting to hear. Kind of clean audit, and then WASC report where the recommendations were accepted, good things to work on. And so just wanted to acknowledge both the prior presentation and your presentation, and thank you for that.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you, trustee. Anyone else? Go ahead, trustee Crew.
Yeah, I did want to congratulate you on the WASC report, and really congratulations on the school culture and I think the staff and students, like they're all very clear on what the vision and mission of the school is, and they kind of collaborate and focus on equity. And I like the IB for all. I do have a question, given that the WASC team was already saying, wow, that's a lot of action items to do. And then in each of the component areas that they were reviewing, there were even more detailed actions. So how do you prioritize all that? And I assume you have to work on those through the 6 years that before the next WASC visit?
Yeah, and some of them are already things that are underway. Like we identified, particularly I think in attendance, we identified that as an area going back to the spring of 2023. And, you know, as we were sort of looking at the action plan, we were noticing that we were able to kind of already start checking things off that have happened. And shout out to Dr. Chacon and her team for being super supportive in that area. Yeah, it's a lot. I think, again, the reason that we're able, I think, to have such an ambitious action plan, one, I don't think that our staff would sort of have it any other way. We had these conversations, you know, it wasn't just a matter of like, let's just throw everything on the wall, and we really had deep dialogue about where we wanted to prioritize. And there were things that didn't make it into that sort of master list, but there were people that felt really strongly that should be a priority. Analogy I make is I heard somebody, I think it was Trustee Stevenson, who talked about we should put a page on the website. If I put a page on the website for every time somebody said there should be a page on the website for that, it would be it would be like 8-point font, hyperlinks, just like scrolling down, because there's so many things that are really matter to folks. And we have so many people on our staff who, in addition to coming every day and thriving in their role, are willing to take on more because they have again, going back to that idea, they have a really strong commitment to the community. They feel a sense of mastery of what they do. They have a sense of purpose within the mission and within the vision of the school, and these shared values that we have. And then I think also this idea that we can't just sort of do the minimum, or we can't just sort of do the thing. We have to work together. It's also a really collaborative staff, and so a lot of these things only have what gives me pause when I see like an action plan that has a ton of items on it is when every item is like, you know, person responsible, like administration, principal. I can't, you know what I mean? There's 4 of us and we're barely our heads are barely above water on any given day. So the idea like, oh yeah, there's like, we'll just drive this. It only happens because there's people that really do own outcomes and results in some of these areas. So that helps a lot when it comes to, I think, the sort of scope of the action plan. But it's an ongoing conversation. So the idea for us is not to put this action plan on the shelf. It's we open it back up tomorrow at our site council meeting and start thinking about where are we at with this? What's going on with this? We already have a subcommittee right now that's talking about possible changes to the bell schedule for next year to look at these how we can create more time for collaboration, because that's one of the things that we really want to do is give a highly collaborative staff the space to cook.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you so much. We have a couple more minutes. Trustee Nori.
Oh, I just wanted to quickly say thank you also for an amazing report. I enjoyed reading it. It was very detailed, and I think there are a lot of interesting strategies that, I look forward to seeing how they're implemented and what results from them.
All right, I am last. Great job. I went to the WASC committee, the WASC day. And I've been at Sequoia so many times that I could see what you were talking about. That's why I think visits are so important to not necessarily have a party for me, but just to kind of see you guys in your rawness, and in your glory, and not so much your glory, right? But really learning how the community functions. And I could really see it in your report. I wasn't surprised by anything in there, whether it's recommendations or whether it was the praises. So thank you for being critical of yourself, because that's where it starts first. And we're harder on ourselves than we are others. And so I saw that in the report that you were holding yourselves to a high standard, which I appreciate. And I think the other thing that I appreciate is the questions that I had, and you were like, I was like, what about equity, and some of the questions that you were having in there of yourself, and looking at how you move from equity being something on the side with a committee to something that was integrated, and it's the way your mindset is. And I see it in your parent groups. Even though sometimes they're separated out by language, they also come together. And I see that populations are very satisfied there, even though you're looking at more integration, you're looking at opportunities for all, and really removing barriers to go between programs. And I just think that's a beautiful thing. And I see that City of Redwood City and Redwood City Together supports you in all of your diversity. And I just think it's a model of like, how do you bring communities together? And so I appreciate that. So any other comments before we close out? Thank you, Principal Priest.
Oh, I had one.
Oh, you have another
question.
comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just, with all the work you have ahead of you, how can we as a governing board best support you?
Question.
Great question. So hopefully one of the when I was thinking about this presentation, I was trying to consider the audience, and I know that this is a very like complex process, and I'm not sure. I mean, I've been through it a lot on both sides, and I'm still sometimes like, okay, what exactly are we doing here with this? What is this prompt asking for? So hopefully, as a result of tonight, you all have a little bit better understanding of what the WASC accreditation process consists of for schools, because we all go through it. We're all on a different cycle. I think there's Carlmont's coming up next month, and there'll be probably another school next year. And so the extent to which you can engage in conversations with folks about that during that time, I think is super helpful in understanding what the schools go through and how this task can be meaningful. I think that's really helpful and driving those conversations when we do get a chance to sit down and talk about some of the challenges, what we want to prioritize. Hopefully that'll help give you some context to to have, you know, those conversations maybe go a little bit further than they would, just because we have such a small amount of time to actually talk. And there's so much going on. It's easy to kind of pick one thing. You could probably pull anything out of this report, and you and I could sit and talk about it for an hour. Easy, right? With no notes. So it's then like, but we're not going to do that very often. So what are the conversations that we have, what going to consist of, and how can we make sure that those are meaningful, and how can we help you in your role as a governing team who share our values and share the same goals and are looking for the same results, be asking the kinds of questions and focusing your efforts. Because there's also just in education, there's so many ideas. People have so many ideas, you know, and so one of the things that's been really helpful for us has been when somebody has a cool new idea, wants to try something new, the first question is, how does it fit in to the plan? How is it aligned with the mission? How is this going to drive forward? Because it might be a really great idea, but we may have to shelve it for just now if it's not where we want to be, and we can't, and then we can incorporate it into these formal processes. And when we do sort of go through these formal things, and right now, I mean, it's great. The timing is great because you're right in the middle of the strategic plan. And so once that's out, then it'll be, I think, easier to sort of focus some of those conversations. Let's go back to the strategic plan. How does this fit into what we're setting out to do over the next 2 years, 3 years?
Thank you so much. I'm going to close out our conversation unless there's a dying question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. We have 2 items and then we're going to take a break. We're going to try to push through this so that we can take a break before the discussion items, which I assume those would be like 20 minutes each or less. So let's start. Hey, Freedom. 14.3 presentation on the American Federation State and County Municipal Employees and the professional bargaining and unit and maintenance and operating a bargaining unit. Go ahead. That was a lot. I don't even think I said it right, but you go ahead, Freedom.
Yeah, thanks, Shanice, Trustee Stevenson. Trustees, Freedom Siam, Director, Human Resources, here on behalf of Todd Beal. He couldn't be here this evening. But also our colleagues from AFSCME asked me to read their sunshine proposal. And so I'll start with that. So the Sequoia Union High School District chapter of AFSCME Local 829 negotiating team and AFSCME business agents submit the following sunshine proposal to negotiate on the following reopeners with SUHSD as provided in a 23-24 board-approved tentative agreement. We look forward to working collaboratively with SUHSD negotiating team to problem solve and have positive resolutions, and we strive to continue to build trust and positive relationships while affording AFSCME represented staff the support and representation needed to achieve the best standards, working conditions, and services provided to the students, staff, and our community. The articles reopened for negotiations for 24-25 school year will be salaries, Article 6, health and welfare, and paraprofessional and instructional associate benefit coverage, salary schedule placement, and paid hours per day.
Thank you so much. I forgot to ask, or is there any public comment? Laura,
Have no cards.
anything online? Give you a couple of seconds. Doop, doop, doop. No one online. I turn it over to my colleagues for any board comments or questions. Thank you for the information. Next one, presentation of the Sequoia Union High School District's 2024 collective bargaining proposal to ASME Local 829 office, and I turn that back over to Freedom.
Thank you so much.
Hold up before you do that. Any public comments?
No public comment.
Okay. All right, caught myself. All right, go ahead and start speaking, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Pursuant to Government Code Section 3547, the Sequoia Union High School District presents the following reopeners to the 23-24 collective bargaining agreement with AFSCME. The proposal is based upon the district's interests and principles These interests and principles include maximizing the achievement of all students by providing quality education so that all students are engaged and prepared to excel in a global society, compliance with legal mandates, and maintaining a fiscally responsible multi-year budget. The articles for reopening on behalf of the district, Article 4, hours of employment, Article 6, health and welfare, Article 13, wages, and we also have committee work, and we have committees for the various different articles, including Article 5, transfers, Article 7, leaves, Article 8, evaluation procedures, and Article 11, discipline.
Thank you so much. Any board comments or questions, students? Okay, thank you for the information. We are now going to take a 5-minute break. Please be back at 8:35. Start with the first one, the first reading of let's start with the public comment to the first reading of the revised board policy administrative regulation on uniform complaint procedures. Any board comment, any comments, Laura?
No comments.
Any
Talk
on
to
the,
Edson.
okay, great. Any online? All right, we're turning it over, to Freedom. Man, Freedom 3 times. You haven't been here, you get all this time.
Yeah.
Go, Freedom.
Get a 2 for tonight. Again, on behalf of Assistant Superintendent Todd Bill and Human Resources, I am just going to, since it is just the first framing, just highlight why there are amendments to the UCP, the Universal Complaint Procedure. So federal monitoring programs maintain that we keep our board policies up to date every 2 to 4 years. It's been some time since we've amended or updated some of our board policies and administrative regulations. And so each year, that federal monitoring program will identify a policy to focus on in each LEA. So it's not specific to our LEA, Sequoia Union High School District, but all 1,300 LEAs in the state of California. And this year, it's the uniform complaint process. And so we are amending our UCP policy to reflect the updated requirements in California Education Code, as well as state law, federal law, and labor law. And just in general, a quick snapshot TLDR for you. In general, the amendments proposed tonight explicitly state what is covered in our UCP process. Additionally, if it is not covered by the UCP, it explicitly states and redirects to which agency or process that would cover the respective complaint. TLDR, too long, didn't read.
All right. I was going to ask you about what that meant. I was like, what acronym is that? Okay. I'm going to turn it over to our student trustees. Any questions? All right. And to my colleagues, any questions, comments? I can't see Amy. Any questions? Okay.
So I have a clarifying question. With no questions, is the board okay for this to come back on consent for the next meeting? Yes? Okay, great. Thank you.
So we're all confirmed with that. Discussion item 16.2. Any public comments for first reading of the revised policy of the high school graduation requirements? Laura, anyone in the room?
I've received no cards.
Okay, anyone online? We have one person and we're closing out the comments. So we're going to call on, you want to call her Christina? Christine, I'm sorry. Arnold Costany? Am I saying that correct? Okay. I apologize, Christine, if I said your name incorrectly. We're gonna allow you to speak. You have 3 minutes. We're putting up the timer. Thank you so much, Christine.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. My name is Christine Arnold, and I'm a Menlo Park resident as well as a Menlo Atherton alumni parent. The recommendation outlined in discussion item 16.2, which suggests making an exception to the board policy by permitting this year's senior students to graduate with fewer credits, has alarmed me. This approach appears to be a significant misstep by the district, teachers, and staff, signaling a failure to adequately educate our students. By proposing to lower graduation standards, you are not addressing the root issue that students are not sufficiently prepared to graduate. Instead, it seems you are opting to ease them through the system without the necessary preparation, effectively abandoning your commitment to their education. The evidence as shown in the data is undeniable for those willing to thoroughly examine it. It is imperative that the district avoid superficially reviewing data to find information that merely supports preconceived decisions. The Student First organizations has conducted comprehensive analysis that unmistakably demonstrates the ineffectiveness of policies enacted in recent years. The district decision to suspend in-person learning during the COVID-19 pandemic has had lasting negative impacts on student learning. Furthermore, efforts purposely aimed at promoting equity, such as the elimination of honors classes and the introduction of blended English classes for freshmen, have not yielded positive results. These decisions have instead hindered students' ability to progress academically and build confidence. The data concerning the college career preparedness of last year's seniors class of 23 highlights an alarming decline in readiness, especially among disadvantaged students groups across various schools within the district. This trend points to a broader issue of diminishing college and career readiness across the district since 2018, despite efforts to address disparities. It is crucial for the district to undertake a rigorous and honest evaluation of its current strategies, including a deep and honest dive into the data, an analysis of feeder school performance, and the overall trajectory of our students' educational journeys. You must adopt a more individualized approach to education, offering targeted support and opportunities that meet students' specific needs at the right times. Your primary objective should be to empower every student to achieve their fullest potential rather than hastening their progression to graduation without ensuring they are truly prepared. As an educational institution, you must acknowledge your shortcomings and commit to a path of genuine improvement and support for all students. This involves a shift away from policies that superficially advance students without addressing underlying educational deficiencies. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I turn it over to Ms. Hanson for further explanation of your graduation requirements.
Thank you so much. Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Leach, members of the audience and cabinet. I know there's nowhere you would rather be at 9 o'clock on Valentine's night than here with me. So dreams come true. I have before you tonight a proposal that this year, as we did last year, we allow seniors to graduate with 180 units instead of the district's traditionally required 220 graduation credits. The state and the reason for that is because this year seniors spent their 9th grade on Zoom. So they spent their 9th grade year learning on Zoom. As the data shows, most students have bounced back from that. It also shows that some students have not bounced back from that. You have received emails from several head counselors this afternoon and evening outlining for you what it has been like for some of our current seniors who spent their first year with us online during a pandemic. The 180 credits that would be required for graduation this year would include all of the graduation credits required by the California State Board of Education for a diploma from a California high school. It also includes all of the A through G requirements with the exception of 1 year of English. Our proposal requires that students pass their senior year of English. That means that a student cannot graduate under this 180 unless they pass their most advanced or capstone year of English. I want to say again, that is the only thing that is a UC A through G requirement that is not required of this year's seniors to graduate with 180 units. This change would happen in the last half of the last quarter, the 8th portion of the year. And the reason that we wait this long is because we don't want students to feel like they can slack off. I don't need to work hard in my classes because I'm going to be able to graduate with further units. This proposal does not come to you late. It will not go into effect until halfway through the fourth quarter. The recommendation comes from the head counselors. They proposed it. It was then approved unanimously, by the IVPs and then the principals. Students impacted by this are, of the 2,329 Sequoia Union High School District seniors on the diploma track, 166 students. That's 0.07% of the current senior class who is in this situation. This is the last year that this request will be made of this board. It's the last year of students who were in our care during COVID. And it's the last group of students who have a college record, a high school record impacted by learning online during COVID. We know of no other districts proposing this in our area. We propose it nonetheless. Our overall dashboard results, there are 33 cells on the California State dashboard where we are held accountable for specific percentiles and numbers. Of those 33 cells, we outrank the state in 22 of them. Are there areas of improvement? Absolutely, no question about it. You heard about those areas for improvement in our January board meeting when we went over the state dashboard results. Are our graduates getting a good education in this district? According to the state dashboard, yes, they are. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to look at thank you, Bonnie. I'm going to look towards our student trustees. Any questions or comments? None? Not one. Okay, that's all right. Now I look towards my colleagues.
I'm happy to go first. So I guess the first question I kind of had was, how did the unit count of 180 come up? Because for me, at least, my concern is that seems a little low. Like, I was wondering why it wasn't like closer to like 200 as the number of units needed.
I don't know. It was proposed by the head counselors. It was the number that they felt was appropriate. I know that they looked at data. I know that they talked to their principals about it. The principals first heard this. The IBPs passed it in November, and the principals first heard about it in December, and they said, we really want to go back and talk to our head counselors and look at the data and what the cutoff is. So I can get you that answer, Satvik. I don't have it tonight.
Yep. Anyone else have any questions? Rich?
So I'd asked in advance, and so thank you for getting the number of students. I'd be interested in just, there's something that we heard during the WASC presentation, which is, we want the Sequoia diploma to mean something. And granted, I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything with any change, but, we have the regular graduation requirements for a reason. And so I've struggled a little bit with like wanting it to mean everything it should mean. And then if you lower, then it means something at least a little bit less than if you didn't lower.
It means you took fewer electives. It definitely does mean something less. There's no question about it. But it also, those 220 graduation units do not have in mind the fact that a group of students spent an entire year, most of them with their computers off in their bedrooms with mental health issues trying to complete their 9th grade year of high school. So in a normal situation, I would say you're absolutely right. I agree that it is less, but it is not significant as far as UCA through G, what they're supposed to know when they leave high school.
Okay, acknowledged. And I guess two things I'd be interested. I mean, you said you don't know of any other local districts. Certainly we'd be more comfortable if other local districts were doing something similar.
Understandable.
And being alone in making this sort of change is less comfortable.
Sure.
And you mentioned, I think it's about 7% of the students.
No, it's 0.07%. It's not even 1% of the seniors.
Wasn't it?
187.
Wasn't it like 100 and something out of
It is, it's
2,000?
166. You're right. You're right. My bad.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'd be interested to know something about if all those students are at one school, if they're evenly distributed, if there's something, just to understand
Sure.
the group of students that we're talking about. I think
The highest you want me to tell you now?
If you already know, sure.
The highest number of students is at Sequoia High School with 60. And theirs is the highest because they have the highest graduation requirements in the district. They include geometry in their graduation requirements. They also have the largest number of students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. And they have a slew of students who are going to be with us for the 5th year because they have come in at English language level 1 or 2. Do you want to say anything about that?
Thank you, Sean.
First of all, this isn't something that, I can report out from the principal conversation any of us took lightly. There was a lot of consternation last year when we had the conversation about 180 at that time. And then when it came back around again, I think it took 3 meetings for us to get to the point where everyone was at best reluctantly okay with this. And really it came down to having conversations. For my population, a lot of the students that fall into this category are students who came in as newcomers, had success in our program, but were really starting 3-4 steps behind the ball anyway, and have managed to hang on. So we want to give them opportunity. Having been on Zoom calls with kids and families at least once a week when these kids were 9th graders. I can think of one student in particular who used to come to open Zoom room that we would hold. Who's going to graduate in the 180. Her family has been, over the course of the 4 years, reluctant to have her even go to school regularly. There have been, whenever there's any sort of thing, she sometimes has to stay out. There was sibling care that was going on, so it wasn't a matter of like, oh, these kids are just not doing school. They were in some cases taking care of multiple siblings as 13, 14-year-olds. We've cased out the students who would qualify, and it certainly seems like it's the right thing to do to give them opportunity to get diplomas. Likewise, I think there's a couple of caveats with right? Did we go over those? I'm sorry, it was sort of, yeah. I don't know it off the top of my head. I can't, I don't want to get it wrong.
So students are going to be able in the second half of the 4th quarter to drop 1 class and start retaking that class in Edgenuity. So if you spend, Edgenuity should be 50 hours per course. So if you work your tail off, you can get to graduation with 1 class. They won't be able to do it for multiple classes, which was allowed last year, which means they're almost for sure going to end up being a summer graduate. So the ante is upped this year from last year.
That was all my.
Is that all your
that was my
questions? Bonnie, can you remind me what are California standards for high school credits? Not the whole list, the number.
It's 130 and it's attached in,
Yeah. I was trying to remember what it was because I have so many things open. So
yeah.
So ours is 50 credits more, most of them A through G, the ones that,
No, not necessarily A through G. What
Oh,
I'm saying
or
is,
of the requirement. for a
yeah,
high school
we
diploma.
only miss 1 A through G requirement with what we are proposing to this group. But that's a year of English
Mhm.
because you need 4 years of English to meet UCA through G requirements. But you have to pass your senior year of English, which is that's the hardest. That's your capstone English class. So you're at a level when you graduate that you're able to do senior level English.
Okay. And this is your last time proposing this?
It is.
Do I, for some reason, it looks like you have a question, Trustee Norton?
Questions they can go.
Okay, so, yes, okay, so now, because I'm going back to remembering, oh, you have one more? Because I'm remembering having this come up several times, and
Every year
so,
since the pandemic.
ever since the pandemic, so it feels like this is part of supporting our students who have the hardest time graduating, but really trying to do it at the very end so we don't give low expectations, that it's more of a helping hand to those students who have worked really hard
Correct.
and have other needs going on. And so I assume that the counselors are working with them and they have identified them. And so I trust that process. So now I'm going to go to my colleagues. I want to go to Trustee Ku and then Trustee Dubois.
Yeah, so my question related to, I know you mentioned Edgenuity and then the summer graduation program, but can you outline like all the different opportunities to make up credits and kind of what was the student's ability to do so?
Sure.
In the
So
context?
this year's seniors have had access to summer school on steroids for the last 3 summers. They have been able to make up in summer school 10 units per summer. And then beyond that, they have been able to take Edgenuity classes to make up courses. If you're taking 10 units, that's a pretty heavy load to then do Edgenuity on top of that. Summer school runs, I think, 6 hours a day, and then Edgenuity ends the same time as summer school does. So they've had that opportunity. Our graduation requirements are only our graduation requirements are 220 units, which means that there's time in your schedule to make up additional classes if you need to, not a lot, but some time. And then they've had Edgenuity labs also open over the course of the year to recover units.
Okay, Trustee Dubois.
Just a comment. I really appreciate that the recommendation came from our counselors, and I'm thinking about past board presentations that involved our counselors. They work with all of our kids. Their eye is on the graduation, and they know the stories. And I just really appreciate that this was their recommendation, and then it was carefully considered by IVPs and principals. So I think it's a very thoughtful way of supporting our kids.
Now I think we're going to turn over for about a 10-minute discussion, you think? Would that be enough time? All right. Trustee Nori, you said you wanted to discuss.
So the reason that, I have mixed opinions on this, and I think I looked at it as terms of like, how many classes you take. So you take 6 classes a year, you take 24 classes in your time in high school. And I think 180 units means you failed 6 courses. So if you say you were a freshman student during distance learning and you failed all 6 courses, the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause, because I do think it's fair to show some grace here, is to say, if you did any one thing, even if it was 190, to say you made up one class, you tried something to say, okay, we didn't have freshman year, you made something up. That shows some effort on the student's part himself, which I think is important because that's where the value for diploma comes from. So the only thing that I completely respect the fact that, people had to go through 1 year of distance learning, but I think we as a district give students a lot of opportunities to make up credit, a lot of opportunities to do it. And I think there's nothing wrong with taking more than 4 years to get a high school diploma. And for me, at least, having a diploma, it's great, but in our world, a lot of people, in order to have a successful career, you're going to have to do something past that. So, and I think the real value for high school diploma comes from being set up to do, a post-secondary career, whether it be in the trades, whether going to community college, whether going to a 4-year college. And I'm concerned that this might not be the right mindset to send versus saying, hey, if you have to spend an extra summer, you have to spend an extra year to learn more, you'll be in a better position. And I'm confident that for a lot of these students, if they did spend some more time, even if it was inconvenient for them, they might be in a better position, even if it's not the most fun for them. That's kind of where I land on this.
I actually wonder differently from trying to try on someone else's shoes. And being a social worker in a community who have had people who have had to make tough choices about not graduating, and now going back. And I think giving them this grace would be helpful, and I think it would prevent dropout. And we know that socioeconomically, if you do not have a high school diploma, you cannot, you won't have the financial wellness. It is actually even more of an indicator than a bachelor's or a master's degree. And so I want to make sure that we're not, because I don't have the individual student in mind right now, so it's a little hard to discuss it. But when Sean talked about kind of the adversities that some of our students had to deal with as well beyond what happens in a classroom, I think I've been privileged not to have that. Although I've always had my learning stuff, but I have had other privileges that others have not. And if I try that on, I could not imagine. And I don't think, I don't want to speak for everyone, but look inside yourself. Have you had that experience, right? And this could be a leg up for some students to be able to get to that trade, to be able to get to go to community college. And I just kind of think about the two people who spoke last week about the trades, and getting through high school is one of those. And I fear losing those individuals to dropout. And even though fifth year school is an option, for others may say, I'm tired of school, and they just want to go on. So that is my concern. And that's who I'm thinking of when I'm thinking about this, in addition to kind of what your concerns are, because I do think they're the same concern, but two sides of the coin. Thank you. Who else?
So, yeah, I think at first I was thinking, that's kind of strange to reduce it to 180. But then when I dove deeper into it and realized that all the core classes primarily are still covered, and it's really the electives that that the students may have had to sacrifice. And so that goes to the well-roundedness of a high school education, but not necessarily an indicator of whether they can be successful in college and career, because at least they have all the core subjects in place. And actually, when you look at some of the charter schools in our district, they only focus on the core subjects, and there are actually no credits for electives at all. The electives are kind of considered extra. So that gives me a little bit of comfort that the students will still be prepared for their next step. I think there were many opportunities to make up credits right through summer school or Edgenuity. But I think some of the same factors lie in the summer school process, right? Because if the student is facing hardships or the families have financial insecurity or babysitting needs, that happens a lot during the summer, right? And so that may make it difficult for the students to make up classes over the summer. And even adding on Edgenuity, it is extra work, because if you have outside responsibilities, it's hard to squeeze those things in, even if they try. So I think primarily I'm comforted by the fact that the core subjects are in place, and the students have to pass those core subjects. Even though we lose 1 year of English, but if the requirement is they have to pass senior year English, I think that's a capstone, and I'm comfortable with that.
Trustee Dubois, then Trustee Ginn. Oh, Trustee Ginn?
So I just am for discussion purposes and not a recommendation, but if you're comfortable with it this year, why not just make that permanent? Why not say if 180 is fine and the core subjects are covered? And I'm not recommending that we do it, but like, what's different next year when there will be students who freshman year had adversity? It wasn't COVID, but
Yeah.
there every year will be students who had adversity during their time. So just kind of wondering how you, who
Kind of
are
where that
saying,
lies.
how
where
are you
that
thinking
lies.
about that?
I think that's a different question to bring up to Associate Superintendent Bonnie Hanson. I think the one thing I was thinking about is, and I lost my train of thought just that quick. So I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Dubois, because it's going to come back, because
Isn't it? I mean, what we're talking about is adversity plus COVID, right? And, kids that have to babysit, it's not just over the summer. I mean, we have kids that have to babysit during the school year. We have kids that, I was just talking to, there's a woman in my community who has cancer, and she was saying how lucky she is to have such a supportive husband. And I said, there's kids in our district have to take care of parents that are dying from cancer, right? So, I mean, there's circumstances
Yeah.
that are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And success is, there's not one formula for success. What we're really trying to do is create lifelong learners. And sometimes these obstacles cause kids to turn off from learning and turn off from continuing. And there's all kinds of success looks different for different kids. And I hope that we all broaden our definition of success. So I appreciate this. I think this is really, what you guys are doing is really high compassion for kids who really need this, right? And I also wanted to say that I learned a lot from Mary Dunn, who was an independent study teacher, and she was working again with this group of kids, 1%, incredible obstacles that none of us have ever experienced. And she told me once that she would give A's, only A's. And the reason she did that, I hope that's okay to say it, Bonnie, but she was really trying to inspire them to learn and to keep coming back. And I think she did that with many, many kids in our district. She's retired now, but she was masterful with kids who had lost hope.
I think the other thing I think about, and this is actually before I came on board, I forgot what the homework program was called. Maybe Sothic remembers. Is it what was that homework
The
program?
homework center?
Is that, yeah, the 24-hour whatever. And Bonnie would come back and say, kids were on doing their homework between 11 and 2 a.m. And I think one of the things I think about is that during COVID, it gave us an opportunity to be different, to meet students where they were. In actuality, the antidotes that we would hear about when kids are working, when they're not working, when they're doing their homework, it actually gave us data like our kids are working right after school, sometimes leaving school early, and they're at comprehensive schools and they're at some of our small schools and small programs. And so it gave us an idea of really what some of our students, I'm looking at Dr. Chacon because I know you deal with our students who are more a little untraditional, that they're doing things to live and to contribute to the household, because it's in their first team, their family, where they're all working together to kind of live and be. And there's so many community assessments out there right now around the environment of some of our families and what they're facing. And it's not necessarily just low income. Sometimes it's just life happens and we all have to bounce back because something unexpected happened in the house. I actually still think the standards are higher than California. I didn't know it was so low. But like 180, I think gives an opportunity. I think, Trustee Ginn, I think you bring up a good question, but I'm not for sure if this is the time to ask that question. That's more so like, what are our ongoing graduation requirements will be? And I think that is a question to have if we want to have it, if that is something the counselors and our leadership team wants to discuss. But I think for this moment, for this time, that we're trying to decide for these group of students that have been impacted less than 1%, and how are we going to support them to get to their next step, so they can have financial wellness, so that they can feel the fruits of their labor, really. Bonnie, I'm going to turn it over to you if you have any more comments or anything like that. And then we'll go for.
Just that neither I or you board members should try to do math after a certain time at night, because you were wrong and I was wrong about the percent of students that it is. So that's embarrassing. But you can also propose something different. I'll just say that, right? Like this is the proposal that came from staff. Someone in the audience texted me, propose 190 with all 4 years of some flavor of ELA. So I'm just going to throw that out there, that if you're not comfortable with that, there are other options. And let's none of us do math after 9 o'clock at night.
That's what, somewhere between 6 and 7% is.
Yeah, 7%.
I don't know where that came from, the recommendation. I, for one, am not a counselor. I'm going to look at Rich. Maybe he has some counseling in his background that he has a different recommendation.
I have no different recommendation at this time. I think maybe we all think about it and then talk about it at the next meeting, but, and
Okay.
then,
Yeah, the only thing is I would also like to understand, I guess, before we vote, what the kind of rationale for 180, because even the thing about 190 that gives me something is there were students who theoretically, struggled freshman year during COVID who then made up some of those courses. So in hindsight, it's kind of like to them saying, you didn't really have to do any of this, which is why I kind of like that 190 more, just to say like there was something that was done, because I'm sure there were a lot of students who did take the time to go to summer school, who did do that. In respect to them, we could have grace, but I just wish there was a little more.
So trustee Nori, I hear you saying, since this is a discussion item, not a voting item, that maybe you can come back with some information around what would 190 look like and what would that impact be on our students, good, bad, or indifferent? Any other suggestions?
I really prefer.
Go
that
ahead and
we-
get your thoughts together.
I
Keith.
prefer that we support the expert's recommendation
Okay.
and not mess with it. I mean, I think individual trustees can spend more time talking to counselors. They can, talk to our AVPs.
Okay.
I don't think we should be in the weeds of this.
Okay.
This came from the people who know a lot more than we know.
I'm going to look to our student trustees who represent all students. Or do you guys have any thoughts? Representing all students? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think it's really important to recognize the value of a diploma outside just the knowledge gained by being in school and the value that a diploma represents out in the real world. But it also is important to recognize that there is value in making sure that all students that receive a diploma learned as much or at least up to par above a certain level as many and most of their peers. And I agree that especially with some of the effects of COVID, that there should be some sort of lower bar to compensate for that, because I remember getting barely any sleep. I remember staying up until 3 a.m. to do my homework, and then taking PE in my room while I was still lying in bed. And
I want to see that. I want to see that.
it was quite the sight for my mom. And I would tell her I'm in PE right now. But my point is that for some students who recognize that maybe wasn't, or made some decisions to and because of the environment we're not able to pass those classes, it's important to give them the support and compensate for the fact that they didn't have as much support as other grades. But I am also interested in finding a balance between the 180 units and maybe something a little higher.
Okay. Sahara?
Yeah, I think kind of just to your earlier point about representing all students and what Jacob was saying, there is definitely a responsibility of us kind of as the board in the district to ensure that we are meeting students where they are. And I think that that doesn't necessarily always have to be lowering expectations, though definitely, grace and reprieve for the pandemic is absolutely necessary, but also just offering more resources to students, giving them more support. Like Trustee Dubois was saying earlier, understanding different family situations, different living situations, socioeconomic situations, and making sure that as educators, we are doing everything in our power to help students achieve what they want to achieve, rather than kind of assigning them a lower bar of achievement just because they don't have access to the same privilege.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to look to Ms. Hanson. How do you want to handle this? Can we bring back more information about the 180, or do we need to say, go back to the drawing board? Like what would this look? It sounds like hold on. We have more than one or two people. So trying to figure out what the process is. This is a discussion item. I heard our student trustee said, is there anywhere in between, thinking about some of the students at SAC and whom they've talked to, And I love how Zahara said dealing with grace and reprieve, not lowering the bar, but doing with grace and reprieve. I really love that language. But also looking at Trustee Nori, who's kind of thinking about those next step of we don't want to lower the bar too low because we want people to want to graduate. And I know my concern is we may have some kids who are already discouraged because it's been very difficult. So I'm going to go to Amy one more time, and then I'm going back to Bonnie so that we can close the topic out.
Yeah, so my comment is just that I would be interested in, how the number of 180 came about. So it's not that we have to switch to something else, but I just want to understand the rationale for that. And then if there's some way to highlight, how the students have tried to achieve or make up the credits, that would give us a better understanding of how hard the students are working or what was the situation.
Okay.
Because it could be that they attempted and they either didn't complete it or they still failed it or whatever the case may be, but just want to
So
see.
try to get more stories around
Yeah.
kind of what happened. So
Mhm.
I'm going to turn this over to you, Bonnie. It sounds like 180. And if there's a possibility, if there's any wiggle room, and maybe even your wonderful counselor. I know that being a counselor is complex, and I've talked to my own counselor friends about counseling, and it is not an easy thing. There's all these different laws and regulations and all the different colleges and programs and what you're thinking about. So I know it's more than just, a number. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, and then we're gonna close out.
I don't know what happens when I present a discussion item, and usually I present a discussion item and you tell me what questions you have and I bring that information back. So my understanding would be that I would bring back the information about how they arrived at 180 units. I would bring back the information about, did students retry to take these classes? What effort was made? And then is there something else that I would bring back?
That is what I'm hearing. I think I saw a hand over here. Oh, Trustee Ginn.
Just, I don't know if like, I'm not necessarily asking, but maybe what other people would want to see was if the number was 190 instead of 180, like how many students?
Okay.
Or maybe.
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe 190 and 200, like would be
Sure.
what we'll be looking at in terms of numbers?
Great.
Just to.
I would say that 190 is what I heard, like to make it a little higher. But certainly if 180, if we have a good explanation and the board feels comfortable, the next time you would come, it would be a vote at that time.
okay,
So just more information.
okay.
And maybe what we can do is send our questions in advance
I love
so that we can make sure we get the full information beforehand, as well as any clarifying questions once they come.
Great.
I am closing out this item. You
I'm
got
sorry,
it, Bonnie?
To the chair, just some clarification. So would the BP be brought back as a second reading only or second reading and adoption
Second reading and adoption.
both?
Depends, so we can have the option.
So it'll be an action item
Mhm.
or on consent?
No, not on
It'll be an
consent,
action item. Okay, thank you.
because that would allow us to ask questions, and if we feel comfortable, go into adoption. Okay. Thank you, Bonnie. All right, y'all, we're going to action items, approval of the financial audit report. Come on down, Miss Gong.
Board has heard the presentation regarding the 22-23 audit, so we're asking.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
So the board has heard the presentation regarding the 22-23 audit. We're asking the board to approve the 22-23 audit report.
Any questions? Public comment? No public comments, no public comments. Board comments, student trustees, colleagues? All right, motion, please.
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the financial audit report for 2022 to 23.
I second them. Carrie seconds.
Carrie seconds. And we're gonna have to do a roll call, correct? All in favor? Aye. Everybody, aye? All of us? All of us. Okay. Thank you, Christine. That was wonderful. Oh, you're the next item. Sorry. Approval. I can tell I'm tired. Approval of resolution number 008, directing preparation of the 2024-2025 engineering report.
So item 17.2 is an annual resolution that we bring for approval. The resolution authorizes SCI Consulting to prepare the engineer's report for the district's maintenance assessment district. The final report will be brought forth to the board for approval in June.
Okay. Any public comment? No public comment? Any questions or comments, student trustees? Trustees, comments? No comments? Motion, please?
So moved.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
I second.
We
This
gotta
is
do
a
roll call for this one.
Student trustee Argawal,
Yes.
student trustee Yuryev,
Yes.
trustee Gen,
Yes.
trustee Dubois,
Yes.
trustee Ku,
Yes.
vice president Nori.
Yes.
President Stevenson.
Yes.
Motion adopted.
All right. Oh, you're still there. Adoption of resolution 009, resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Sequoia Union High School District, authoring the issuance and sale of net to exceed $100,000. Before we open up, are there any public comments?
None in person.
Not online? Okay, turn it over to Christine.
So on November 8th, 2022, the voters approved Measure W for $591 million. The facility master plan, which will be presented later this evening, has identified $955 million in needs across the district. We are asking the board to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance and processing the paperwork of its first series to finance the Measure W projects.
Thank you so much. Any board questions, student trustees, colleagues? All right.
So I have one.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead.
First, appreciate the time that Amy and I had with you and the bond consultants in advance. And just, I think, the number's 100 million. If you can just give some perspective as to why you picked that number as the initial issuance versus, say, 50 or 150, like why 100 million is the first issuance.
So the, it's up to 100 million. I've been able to, look at the facility master plan and then within I'm at a loss for words. My recommendation is 80 million. So we will be doing the first series, for 80 million. We do have several phase one projects, but, that 80 million will allow us to really get a lot of planning underway. What comes to mind, is the Sequoia, large, what I refer to as the admin building, as well as the MA bleacher and press box, along with another project, soon to be identified. It will also allow us, to start phasing in and designing of the, second round of projects, what I would refer to as phase two.
Any other questions?
So I just want to comment to the board as a member of the subcommittee that was part of the discussion that just, as a refresher, that the amount that is issued in bonds has like a time window in which you need to spend it. So you have to be able to spend 80% in 3 years, I think is what it is. So there's just some amount of alignment that we talked about in our meeting. And I said earlier during board member comments that I would bring it back at this section, that part of what Amy and I and Christine talked about with the bond consultants was looking at the timing of the issuances and how that lines up with our master plan. So I'm comfortable moving forward with the recommendation, but thought it was important to, since it is $100 million, that
It
we
is
should,
$100
that we should talk about
million.
it.
Thank you for doing that. That is a lot of money and we're responsible. So, motion?
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, roll call. Sorry,
Student
roll
trust-
call.
Student trustee Argawal,
Yes.
student trustee Yuryev,
Yes.
trustee Gen,
Yes.
trustee Dubois,
Yes.
Trustee Koo,
Yes.
Vice President Nori,
Yes.
President Stevenson.
Yes.
Motion adopted.
All right. Adoption of resolution number 010. Any comments? Nope, not online. All right, Christine.
So in addition to the issuance of the first series of Measure W, we are asking the board to approve the resolution to refunding 3 of the outstanding bonds. Greg Isom and Randy Merritt from Isom Advisor, our financial advisor, are here via Zoom to present the refunding opportunity and answer any clarifying questions that the board may have.
Good evening, board members. This is Randy Merritt, Managing Principal at Isom Advisors. I'll just spend a couple minutes giving you an overview of the refinancing opportunity. We've been tracking all of the district's bonds as we have in the past, looking for refinancing opportunities. We have 3 series of bonds dating back to 2014 and 2015. That are eligible to be refinanced on what is known as a current refunding basis that allows you to refinance the bonds with tax exempt bonds, which carry the lowest interest rates in the marketplace. And so based on current interest rates, there is an opportunity to save taxpayers some money. We've looked through those 3 series of bonds. We've identified specific maturities within those series of bonds and pulled those out. And based on current interest rates, we're looking at a refinancing of approximately $50 million. And the savings for taxpayers is projected to be just over $2 million at this point.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, Rich?
I'm wondering if the resolution can include that the refinancing only happens if the total savings is at least some amount. Because I know my understanding of market rates is they change daily by the minute. So I was wondering if it would make sense to say in the resolution, or if that'd be a separate, the resolution would stand, but it'd be a separate thing if there would be some minimum amount of savings that must be realized for it to go forward. And I don't know how procedurally we would do that, but if that's a concept that my colleagues and the superintendent have some interest in, that maybe that we could move forward with that.
We can capture that in the minutes. My recommendation would be to move forward with the resolution as presented. My recommendation would be for us to not proceed with the refunding if the savings were less than $2 million at this time.
Are you okay with that?
I think that's perfect.
Okay. Motion, please.
I move approval of the resolution with the caveat as the superintendent proposed.
Second.
Roll call.
Student Trustee Agrawal,
Yes.
Student Trustee Yuryev, Trustee Ginn,
Yes.
Trustee Dubois,
Yes.
Trustee Koo,
Yes.
Vice President Nori,
Yes.
President Stevenson.
Yes.
Motion adopted.
All right. We are down to 32 minutes of the meeting. We're now at the approval of the facilities master's plan. And you're still,
I'm going to take this one.
you want to take this?
I'm going to take this one.
Oh, go ahead.
So, right. I mean, we're doing our first bond sale, so we're spending money, and then we're saving money, and then we're spend all this fabulous money on with the approval of the facility master plan. So the facility master plan in draft form was presented to the board in a detailed presentation back in June, and has been up on the website for a couple of months. We have received some comment and feedback as well from school sites that have gone back to their teams to look. We've had some clarifying questions as to the order of potentially the projects. Some like, oh, here, it shows here. And so just really clarifying what the facility master plan is, and that when we get into the actual scope and design of the buildings, obviously placement of buildings, all of that will be, we'll take a deeper dive to make sure that we can also afford to put the building where the recommended location is potentially versus another one. So we do have a CAW architectural firm who was with us throughout this process, which led a very involved process at all of our school sites. And so I bring to you the facilities master plan for adoption tonight.
Is someone presenting? Oh, okay. Let's see if there's any public comments. Okay. Student trustees, any questions? Staff, any questions? I mean, staff, colleagues, any questions? Yes.
So I have one area of interest to discuss with the board and see what you all think. I'm a big believer in clean power. We have solar panels in the plan, but I believe we also get a lot of our power from Peninsula Clean Energy that produces clean power that they sell to us. And so my interest is in approving the plan as presented, but with the clarification that any solar project that we're going to spend bond dollars on, that we know that at least with current projections of power rates, that it is a positive return on investment for our taxpayers to buy those solar panels and put them in and become in the power business versus buying our clean power from Peninsula Clean Energy, who also makes clean power. So I
You know,
just
you
want to make
lost
sure.
me there. Can you slow that down a little bit? You said go with solar, not clean.
So
I just
starting
wanna make sure I
over,
understand.
the plan includes, as I understand it, the school district buying solar panels, installing them on buildings and producing power. And that power would save the district some amount of electric bills each year for some number of years. And so you'd look at how much you'd save each year, projection, and you look at how much the solar panels cost, project how long they last, how much maintenance you'd have to do on them, clean them, they break, a tree lands on them, whatever, and make sure that the project is positive return on investment. Because it's either way, as I understand it, the school will be using clean power. It's just whether we're in the production of that power or the utility company. And I think, Crystal, do we get our power from Peninsula Clean Energy? So we get our energy from a utility that produces with clean energy. So it's not like we're saying use dirty energy or use solar panel clean energy. It's do we produce our own clean energy or do we purchase it? And if we're going to spend the bond dollars on producing it, I just want to know that the projection is that that saves us money. So my proposal would be to approve the facility master plan as is, but say that any spending on solar panels, we would get analysis before that specific spending happened.
So how that would look is when a contract is brought before the board for a project, it would, if staff's recommendation was to, we're building a building and we want to put solar panels on the roof, it would be included as part of that total project package. So that that evaluation would be done and presented at that time. But we are constantly looking at obviously the return on investment with solar panels and the effects that they have within our district, both cost and also in the sustainability world.
I'll say that I've been in discussions with people in the power saving business, and they were trying to lump together, like changing the light bulbs with doing solar panels. And I was asking, please break that out. And they were very hesitant to break it out, which made me think that it's unclear. Like certainly the whole package was saving money, but they were very hesitant to break it out and say, this is how much you save from switching to more efficient light bulbs. This is how much you save by insulating the building. And this is how much you save from the solar panels. They just wanted to sell a whole package. And so I'm just sensitive to the packaging of it all. And just want to know that that particular piece, because we have Peninsula Clean Energy that produces clean power, that it is cost effective.
Oh, I wanted to add something to that and just make sure that it's not purely just an ROI calculation because actually my husband's a prepper. So we should also consider in cases of natural disasters or anything like that, how long our schools could be self-sufficient for. And so some of that solar power also enables you to have like a backup plan. So it's not just a generator, but you could actually be storing the power in a battery or something like that so that there's some form of backup until the students can go home safely, you know, those types of considerations. So I would say it's not a pure ROI calculation.
All of those considerations would be a part of the project and the scope. Yes.
Do you feel comfortable? I'm looking at your face. You look
I
like
think
it.
I think this would be a question for Brent, or maybe it's Crystal, I'm not sure, but do schools have the ability to operate off grid? Like, is that something that schools do? Because my understanding of most solar projects is that you need to remain on the grid, and so if the grid goes down, you're not powering the school on the solar panels because you're not set up for the switchover. So he says, so
I say, he said, correct. You want to come to the microphone, please?
Brent with CAW Architects. You cannot completely unplug a school from the grid.
Yeah, I think for me, it wasn't necessarily completely unplugging, but just keeping in mind, like, what is our backup plan? And as we upgrade the facilities, just to be sure that there is a backup plan, because usually there is a cost. And again, it might not be cost effective to have the switch in place so that you could switch temporarily to a battery power, you know, but we should consider those types of things in terms of self-sufficiency for like up to 1 day or whatever our criteria is.
Any other comments?
I just don't know if that's true.
So we have generators on all of our campuses, and we are able to keep certain buildings, right? Safety for power, like we couldn't potentially at this time continue to hold school for longer periods of time. If we were to have a power outage for several days, being in school, and having a school district, we are definitely priority. Unlike my home is not a priority, to have the power turned on as quickly as possible. So, but we're always looking at like threading that needle between energy efficiency, and obviously the highest function, as we know that some of our utilities can not be as reliable 100% of the time, especially with the increase of the storms.
Yeah, okay, you got it? All right, what's the motion?
I move that we approve the facilities master plan.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. We are now down to future agenda items.
I have a point of clarification for a future agenda item. A couple months ago, we had talked about, I think Trustee Dubois had brought it up. We had talked about scheduling board meetings at the school sites. Are we not?
It's not
I
a
had-
board meeting.
It's not, well, it's a board
Board
meeting, but
visit.
it's not a
It's
board meeting.
It's a site
The
visit.
site visit?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, is there still interest in doing, I located my note that said that, and so I needed to check for clarification.
Yeah, kind of the format that we used before, unless
It-
it's too much of an impact on staff, which was maybe have lunch with either teachers or students, see a few classrooms. It should be easy, just. a
Okay,
couple of-
but the prior format, I am familiar with that format.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yes.
If
Are
that's
we-
what other people.
So I want to look to our team. Are we interested in starting to schedule those?
Yeah.
So I'll say I'm positively inclined, but I'd be interested to know if there are other models that other districts do and that we pick, like, maybe what we used to do before, before Shawnee's, you and I never did it because it hasn't happened since we've been on. is exactly the perfect thing to do. And maybe other districts have other models of how their boards visit their school sites. So I'm interested in doing
Yeah.
something, and I'm not opposed. I don't know exactly what it was before. But just looking at considering other ways that it might go. I don't know. So I guess I'm positively inclined, but I'd be open to exactly what happened before or some variant.
Something different. Okay. Amy?
Yeah, I'd be interested in starting up the school visits. But I think before though, was it always every single board member had to attend or something like that, or?
Didn't have to. I mean, we would pick a day. They were very popular and all board members liked them. There was no, I don't think there was any criticism from any of the board members, but like if you were really busy at work, you could just attend part of it, or if you're really busy at work, you didn't have to go, right?
Yeah. I'm wondering, okay, I'm sorry, trustee Nori, I apologize. You go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, like I guess some days would work better than others. So I guess that's at least for me, but yeah.
Okay. So I wonder for this school year, because it's going to be over in like 4 months, that if we could get started with the model that works and then, ooh, excuse me. Sorry about that. But we also can look at other models, but I wonder if it's time to start going back to those right now with the model that we have to experience, and then also look at some other models and you can report back to us. But start with the one, you guys tell me, start with the one that we currently have.
Yeah.
So my recommendation would be one school between now and the end of the year.
And
I
do we
can
need
pick,
to name?
I
or
can pick, if
tell
you
us-
trust me, I'll pick the school.
Oh, you picked, I'm okay with picking a school. How about y'all?
I'm fine picking one too.
School, yeah.
Me
Okay.
picking the school?
Yes.
You're fine with
Yeah,
that?
that's
Okay,
fine.
great. Thank you.
Go
Thank you for your
ahead.
trust.
One by the end of this year.
One by the end of this year.
Okay, gotcha.
So you're thinking a
Superintendent
large
pick.
school?
Huh?
Large school? Is that-
I don't know. We'll
Okay,
see.
whatever.
All right. Thank you so much. Any other items?
I guess just for myself, I'll be traveling for the next meeting, so I guess I need to provide Laura with the address. Is that how it works? Okay. So I
Okay.
will do that.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? All right, I'm closing the meeting. Oh, motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Safik.
I second.
All right.
Wait.